I am back in the saddle right here at 710 KNUN. It is KNUS. I guess it's not KNUN. KNUS. It is Monday, the 18th of September. We are on the downward side of the month of September. Shocking to me as well today. 83 degrees today with isolated PM showers. Tomorrow, lightning bolt coming out of the cloud, few PM storms, 80. And then we hover kind of around in that 80-degree belt through Thursday, and then things get completely speculative on behalf of the meteorologists. 78, 75, 76, a little sun here, a little lightning bolt there. Who knows? Who knows what it's going to turn into? I'm very thankful for John Caldera, Jeff Hunt, and Pete Boyles for filling in for me so ably last week. Many of you thought this is a pleasant change. This is this is so nice to have reasonable people here sitting in the chair doing the heavy lifting of the morning show. I'm happy to be back. I was out in a place called Newport, Rhode Island. They have two important military installations there for purposes of what I did. One is the naval base at Newport, Rhode Island, home to DILS, the Defense Institute for International Legal Studies. No, not the title of some CIA shill organization. And then the other is Camp Fogarty, which is the it's the Rhode Island National Guard headquarters. And they had a huge conference there that was nationwide kind of thing put on ethics. I know that sounds crazy, but on ethical leadership and why leaders fail and all this other stuff. And it was important. I mean, it's interesting. We probably don't do enough of this everywhere in America, let alone in the military. But there was the Inspector General, was a former 2-star general out of Alaska, and she has this presentation called Why Leaders Fail that she started with. And there's like 2 or 3 slides that's just like a composite set of pictures of general officers. A couple observations, by the way. Almost all of them white dudes, about 3 African Americans, not a single woman. Not a single woman busted for some of the things that most of these officers do. And, you know, your gut instinct, mine was to think, well, it's all sex related, right? Like they're all doing stuff with subordinates and stuff they shouldn't be doing. That's true for many of them. That's not true for all of them. Some of them, it was conflict of interest type stuff, things where you just, the problem with the examples is you hear the stories and you think, my God, how did you ever end up making that decision? And that really becomes the jumping off point for this. So that's what I was doing. It was about a 2-day conference, but you know, you got to build in the travel time to head back east and all that other stuff. Got back on Friday evening in time for the big weekend. Now, I don't want to just completely hijack this portion because Billy and I really, almost on purpose, I think Billy is withholding certain details about his weekend. I did notice some cuff marks on his wrists from what I believe to be restraints. I don't know if that's true, but I thought I'd offer up to Billy here the opportunity to tell us really what happened. Why did it go so bad?
I can't talk about that yet because they haven't filed charges. So we'll have to see. So
come on now. No. You could be held forever as a January 6th defendant without charges.
It was a long weekend. It sounds like yours was. We missed you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really nice. Different flavor at the fill-ins, but we missed you a lot here at the show. Just busy. This weekend was a heck of a lot of radio. Spencer was back in town, which was good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that was really nice. That was nice to have him hanging around the house. And again, it's like there's balance of the force. So that is super, super cool.
That's nice.
Yeah,
man.
It was really neat. He went out with friends and goofed around. Girls were running around. I did.
But under your roof at night kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a good feeling.
Which is really neat. And getting up and just having him, just hanging out and having him just there on the couch and there in the kitchen. It's just, it's just nice. So that was big. Did a lot of radio over the weekend. I've got to catch up on yard work today and some other stuff because I didn't have time to do any of it. So got to do some of that this afternoon. I know, work, but man. That's another story.
You provide them with cars. Isn't that like a incentive for them?
You would think. One would think, but it's sadly not all the time. So we did that. The biggest advantage thing or the biggest thing that happened on the weekend, and it sounds really stupid when I say it this way, is our dog has learned a new trick, and it's kind of neat. So Yeah, she
wait
now,
a minute, a new trick like beg, fetch, high five.
She now
fight the neighbor.
What she does is, I always do that when they come home, like go for the face, and when she's barking at people, but
postman.
most people don't think that's funny. The nice part about it was we have trained her to herd the cats, which is nice.
Herd the cats. I want to see this. You need a video.
I'll get a video. It's what it happens is the girls have been taking the cats out into the backyard. Now they're not allowed to just roam around by themselves. We need an adult back there, one to make sure they don't leap over the fences, but also just to make sure they stay out of trouble and don't start climbing trees and stuff. So someone hangs out in the backyard, but getting them back inside has not always been easy. We've been trying treats and some other stuff. And a couple of weeks ago, we were kind of joking about the idea that Aria is at her core a herding dog. That's what she likes to do. So for about 3.5, maybe 4 weeks, but it hasn't been more than 3 weeks, or hasn't been longer than 4 weeks. We have been working with her to herd the cats back inside the house. And it worked out beautifully twice this weekend.
How do you train a herding dog to herd cats?
It was weird. What it was is it's so in the backyard, she comes out with us, and I start walking around with her, and I'm like, let's go find the cats. Where are the kitties? Where are the kitties? Where are the kitties? And we go around, and then once she finds them, I had to then persuade her, no, we need to get you back to the back door. So I was talking to her once she'd found them, and she's like, oh, I found them. That's what I want, right? That's what you want. I found them. They're right here. They're right here. Yeah. I'm like, no. I'm like, get them. Let's bring them back into the back door, to the back door. And kind of worked with her a little bit about what I wanted her to do, and then praised her when she got them to run towards the back door and up on the stairs and wait near the back door. Then she kind of figured out, okay, now I understand it. So this weekend was the first time in which we brought her out back with the cats, and she sat there, and it's much like a herding dog. She takes up a position where she just sits down and she watches. Now, normally when she's out there just basking in the sun or stuff, you can see her just laying down. This time, her head is up, her ears are alert, and she's watching the entire time. And she watches the cats, she watches around, and then you ask her, like, is it time? Are you ready? You want to get the kitties? Is it time to bring the kitties in? And she gets up and she wiggles and she shakes her rear end and her tail starts going in a circle. I'm like, you ready? Okay, let's get the kitties. Get the kitties. Find the kitties. And then she runs around and she goes and she finds them and then kind of pushes them.
This is crazy.
Yeah, so that they come and they figured it out. And so the kitties immediately run to the back door and wait. And then she goes to the bottom of the stairs and then she sits down and waits until we let the cats inside the house.
Do you reward her with something? Like
she gets in every once in a while. Every once in a while she will get a just a treat. And so like, a little milk bone or something like that. But more than that, when she comes inside, she is so proud of herself. She wants to go around and have everybody tell her what a good dog she is.
Oh, that's
so great. She like prances around the house. Like, I did good, didn't I? I did good. Yes. And so she gets love from someone else. And then she prances to the next person. I did good, huh? Yeah. I got the kitties. I found the kitties. You saw me get the kitties, huh? I got the kitties. And then she goes to the next person. I got the kitties.
You got to put this on video, man. I want to see
really
this.
Funny. I'll show you. I'll see if I can get it on video. It's really funny. And she gets really excited about it. And the cats are like, oh, crap. And so they know exactly what's happening when she starts running towards them and herds them. And she comes up around them, behind them, and
that's got to look pretty cute, man. I want to see that.
It is adorable.
Do they ever? You feel like the dog's ever going to show up with a cat between its jaws?
No,
like, got one, found one.
I don't think so. She's still trying to figure out how to play with them. The cats are really trying to play with her, and she's trying to figure it out. The one that is the most confusing thing for her right now is the paws under the door. She wants to do something with that. She knows the kitties are playing, but she doesn't know what to do because she wants to put her mouth down there, and she wants. But that's not what the cats want, and she can't use her, and she doesn't want to use her paw. She doesn't know what to do, and so she gets really, really intrigued. In fact, I think we've talked about this before, that because she's my dog. And because I'm with her and we go on walks, and when she's going to the bathroom, she looks at me and she's looking for me like, okay, you've got me, right? Like if something attacks me, you're going to protect me. And so
you're like, no.
Yeah, no, not at all. But she checks with me. And so she now thinks that she has to protect me when I'm going to the bathroom. It has been years since I've gone to the bathroom by myself. It has been years. And so what she does, she gets in the bathroom and then she immediately turns around and looks at the bottom of the door. And she waits for the cats to come over the door. She just sits there and just waits. Yeah.
And do the cats do that while you're taking care of business?
They will, and they know. Yeah, especially Lyra, my older daughter's cat. Yeah, she knows immediately. She runs over, and you hear her. What she does is she announces herself. She comes over and she will like scratch on the outside of the door and then meow a little bit, and then she'll lay down, and then she starts putting her paws under the door.
Buddy,
so she tells you.
You should have just a video running in the house. Constantly.
Yesterday was it was 4:30 in the morning, and I'm on the air, and I hear over near the snake enclosures, I hear I'm like, what is going
It's a fuse. Someone's lit a fuse.
I'm like, and I walk over there, and I walk over to the enclosures, and one of our corn snakes, Bila, the yellow one, who's 3, is out for whatever reason. But they're crepuscular, so they're up at dawn sometimes.
I have no idea what you just said.
It means that the animals are active at dusk and dawn. That's crepuscular.
Crepuscular?
Rather than diurnal, which is up during the day. Yeah, and then
what's
nocturnal
the one where you want to take a nap all the time? Because that's me.
Yeah, that's called adulthood.
Okay, yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. North of 50 adulthood.
Yeah.
I'm there.
So Lyra is over and Bila is out, kind of wandering back and forth across the enclosure. And Lyra is over there, and she is using her claws, and she's trying to open the latch. She knows how the latch opens, and she's over there trying to open the latch to get inside. And yeah, she's trying as hard as she can. And I'm like, no, stop that. And then she's like, fine.
Once she figures it out, are you unsafe at that point?
Yeah. Well, the snakes are unsafe at that point. But fortunately and unfortunately for her, but fortunately for us, she lacks thumbs. And until she develops thumbs, it's not going to work out very well.
Are you worried? Is that a possibility? Could she end up developing thumbs?
I don't think so. Not at this point. But if she figures out how to put both of the paws together and rotate at the same time, she might be able to open one of them. But I don't think she's got that dexterity yet. But again, unless she has thumbs. Yeah, but she was over there, and she got mad that I was telling her to stay away from the enclosure. So she went to another enclosure and started playing with the thermometer. I've got thermometers in each one of them, and they hang down a little bit. And so she comes over and she knocks it off the little suction cup, and then she's like pshing, pshing, batting it. I think she did it on purpose. Honestly, I'm taking that personally.
I have a very different weekend, man.
Yes, you did. It's stuff involved
largely
fun and families and stuff like that.
No, similar issues. Like I can't train the kids to do anything else either. And they have thumbs. Oh, yeah. They have thumbs. I can't get them to do things like the dishes. And there's some magic with the dishwasher where it's like they don't feel like they're qualified to open the door and put things in it. Yes. They'll set things around the sink. Some sort of weird tribal pattern I haven't figured out yet.
Some sort of Tetris issue where they're trying to balance like Jenga. They're trying to balance things as much as possible.
And I'm like, the dishwasher is right below here. It's right here to the side of the sink down below. Why is it so effing hard to just open it and put things in it? Like, I've stopped caring now whether they even put a full meal in the thing with it. I mean, it's a magic box to them, but I'm just like, please just put something in there. Anything. Acknowledge it exists.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my weekend. My weekend was coming back from Newport, in part because Graham and 2 other boys from his team that play on Sundays in the fall had been asked by another team, they play for Prime, to come up and help out. They'd suffered some injuries, this team, and they were in a tournament, and they needed some insurance.
Guest players. That's cool.
Yeah, they need guest players.
That is awesome. That's always neat to be asked to be a guest player. It's cool.
Double header up in a place very close to Castle Pines called Windsor, Colorado. Nowhere near Castle Pines. It was at least an hour and a half north. So my plan was, and by the way, folks know this from last week, I had obtained tickets at no small expense for the CSU CU game. And we got them through CSU. Trey goes to CSU. So the plan was this. Jeffy was helping out with an Eagle project for one of the kids from his troop. That just happens on Saturdays. You go and you dig this, plant that, put things here and all that. So he's down south. Graham and I go up to do the thing at the doubleheader at baseball. Great game. It was fun to watch them play. It was just such an interesting dynamic because in the first game, they throttled a team that beat the team that ended up throttling them in game 2.
That's interesting.
It defied all of the mathematical properties of if A is greater than B and B is greater than C, then A is greater than C. Not in sports. It just doesn't work that way. And it was just interesting to see the dynamics. It was a little heartening too, because this is a team I've talked about before. They won state last year, and it's just good to see that even a team that's just a level above where our boys are at the moment, they still go through the same stuff our boys do too, which is this inexplicable letdown of how did you just go from back-to-back games? How did you go really from one inning to the next and just sort of lose the ability to hit the ball or a couple bonehead mistakes in the field and all that? Anyway, so plan was finish up there, drive down to Boulder early. Got to be there a few hours early because it's going to be pandemonium.
Yep,
I mean, at 4:30 in the morning, I'm getting media sent to me by buddies who are CU grads out in DC and stuff saying this is what's going on because game day is there, right? I mean, ESPN was there.
I had friends that were leaving here at 7:30 in the morning to get to Boulder.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So 4:30 in the morning. It's pitch black. It's a sea of human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, most of whom are operating at an average of a 0.07 BAC, I imagine,
at least.
At that. So it's going to be, we're going to drive down there. We're going to hook up with Jeffy at Flatirons Crossing so that we're not both driving into Boulder. And then Trey's going to come down and hook up with a buddy of his from high school who's a CU guy, and it's just going to be magic. It's just going to be great. Well, then all of a sudden I get Jeff reaches out and he's like, Dad, he's been driving now for all of about 10 days.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I don't feel comfortable driving all the way up there by myself, Dad. I'm like, son, you can do this.
Yeah.
It's just highway miles. I know it seems like it's the other side of the planet, but you can do this. We'll meet at the mall. You don't even have to navigate crazy Boulder. I'll do that. But he's like, Dad, I don't feel like I can do it. And I said, son, I'm looking at the clock. There's no way I can drive all the way from Windsor back down to Castle Pines, back up to Boulder, and really have any hope of parking somewhere in Boulder. It's just, I can't do it.
Please park at Helen's Ranch.
Please meet me halfway or something. And at the end of the day, he was just like, listen, honestly, I want to see Trey in the game and stuff, but I'm completely comfortable just hanging out at home and blah, blah. So then I reach out to Trey. I'm like, can you talk your brother into it? He couldn't. And then he's like, well, look, my buddy Lucas is up here. Maybe Lucas is a CU kid, didn't have tickets to the game. Maybe
let's have Lucas go. Yeah.
So let's have Lucas go. And so they ended up grabbing dinner. They go, Graham and I go. We're sitting, we had to get ADA accessible seating because, the wheelchair and stuff. And I got to be honest, this whole protective parent thing, I can't tell you how much the ADA stuff puts it on steroids. Like when I roll up to the scene, and I'm there before Trey and Lucas, when I see people have opened these little temporary folding chairs and they're sitting in the 2 seats designated for my son's wheelchair and his buddy, I mean, I don't even have the ability to hesitate.
No, not at all.
I'll wait and see what happens. I just walk right up and lean in and go, this is my son's seat and his friends.
Yeah.
And then I just stare at them and they're like, oh, okay. Okay. And then they just
you're
walk
leaving
up,
now.
Bye-bye.
Yep, exactly. I love that.
And so then we're about one section over in the back row. Similar thing. People just kind of sit wherever they want because they don't care. And that's all right because I don't know if people have picked up on this. I'm more than happy to be confrontational when necessary.
You don't say.
No, and I don't start at DEFCON 5, but I'm at a 3. With the eye contact and stuff. And so we cleared the seats out. Anyway, fantastic game, right? Like ridiculous game. CSU was supposed to be stomped on.
Yeah.
And I remember telling Graham at the beginning of the game, here's the thing. If CU can come out and put a hurting on them, I'd say midway between the second quarter, CSU folds. If they can just put a hurting on them. I said, the problem here is going to be discipline. Because these guys are so amped up. I mean, this is like a circus-like environment. They've been touted as sliced bread, the whole thing. Yep. That's the risk and sure enough, but I didn't see this coming on both sides of the ball. Discipline ended up being a huge factor in this game. Yeah. But CSU showed, I can't tell you how much respect I have for those boys. They showed up to play. They showed up and were just throwing haymaker after haymaker. They'd respond to everything CU did and did even more. And it gets to be towards the end of the game. And we're now in the fourth quarter, CU down 28-20.
Yeah.
Time is ticking away. Graham has been sleeping on me almost the entire fourth quarter. I mean, the place, if you could picture a kid who played a doubleheader of baseball, has a baseball game the next day, he is laying against me as I'm holding him in this back row, and he's just like mouth open, just, and I'm like, son. I'm like, we can go.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I want to say. I'm like, buddy, it's going to be okay. So we get to be about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I turned to him. I said, here's the deal, buddy. We can stick around and one of us will enjoy whatever the hell happens here. But if we leave with all these clowns, we ain't getting home till 2 a.m. or later.
Oh, yeah.
If we go right now, we'll walk along the stadium thing, watch what we can watch. We'll put on 850, listen to the fellas, listen to Mark and the fellas do their thing. And then we'll get home probably closer to 1. I said, you go to sleep. I go to sleep. I get up and I have to run 16 friggin' miles because this is part of this ridiculous train for the Marine Corps marathon nonsense.
I'm glad you said ridiculous.
Oh, it's just,
it's a ridiculous choice.
Every step on the way back is just, what? I mean, I can't understand the logic behind why anyone does it, let alone a man of my advanced age. I just, what in the world am I doing?
That daily.
Oh,
yes.
So we're listening, we're walking and all that stuff. We get in the car. One of us may have actually started watching the TV feed on their phone while the car was in operation. I'm not going to say which one of us it was.
Yes, but you should make sure to tell Graham you shouldn't do that when you're
driving. I should. Yes. Exactly. I would have loved to have told Graham, but I don't know if you know how. We have some clips here. I won't ruin how the whole thing ends if you don't already know. But I'm yelling in the car. I'm doing the little I-25 honking on the horn like
great.
And I turn. Kid is out. He's just mouth open, breathing like it's very corpse-like. And I'm like trying to give him gentle nudges. I'm like, buddy, did you? And he's just, I mean, the whole doesn't have a damn clue what happened for the end of the game until we get home. But we have a little bit of a clip of what happened. Yes, we do.
This is a little bit, and since you're talking about the 28-20 time with Colorado up.
Gets to be about a minute 30 left, right?
Yeah. So we're going to start with 45 seconds left in the fourth.
Well, hang on. Before we get there, they get the ball. The ball is punted out by some Australian kicker from CSU. It goes out at the 2. So now Shedeur Sanders and the otherwise underperforming Buffs, they've put up virtually no points on these guys. They've got to drive 98 yards, not just score a touchdown, but get the 2-point conversion.
Sanders. Downfield, got him in! Horn! Atonement! Touchdown! Here we go for the tie. He pulls it out, and we're tied! Harrison! With 5 receivers. Sanders pulls, got it! Touchdown, Harrison! Nicolosi pulls it out on the slant. Horton with the catch. Touchdown. This offensive line has continued to try and protect better and better here in the second half. Sanders open. There he is again. Touchdown, Harrison. Nicolosi steps up into the end zone in a crowd. No good. Picked off by Woods, and it's over. Buffaloes win it.
That's it. Yeah.
Unbelievable how this game ended. Jeez. Now, would I have wanted to be in the stands for that? Sure, I would have. But I'll be honest with you, man. Pulling into the house at about 12:45. So refreshing as that game was ending. I was picturing people making their way to the cars and the sea of humanity. And maybe I'm just at that age, man. But it was an incredible game. For those of you that didn't follow it, somehow Shedeur Sanders takes what is otherwise a very pedestrian performance. I mean, the guy goes into those last couple minutes of that fourth quarter with under 200 yards passing, a pick that wasn't his fault. And in fact, it was probably Travis Hunter's fault. And 1 touchdown. Ends the day at like 360 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, just
crazy.
Unbelievable. The overtime stuff, the rules that I don't know, man. This whole thing, this guy's ability to look defeat right in the face and not blink. I don't know, man. He's something special. And then Travis Hunter, who's our at the time Heisman-ish two-way player.
Yeah.
What a cheap shot, garbage thing.
That was cheap.
All they get is a personal foul on it. Travis Hunter ends up with like a ruptured spleen or something like that. It feels like there ought to be more. If you engage in a cheap hit and it results in some kind of a larger injury, they ought to think about, you can't fine them but maybe you can suspend them for as many weeks as that dude is out, you're out too. I mean, it just has to be it.
That's got to be, because that was a cheap shot.
Unbelievable. These guys were getting frustrated, and they lost Kamara, who was their best probably tackler on the field at the end of the game because he lacked discipline. Face mask on Shedeur, followed by a targeting penalty on Shedeur. He gets ejected from the game. If you watch the entire game, you can see some of these kids just lack discipline, what Coach Prime would call just foolishness.
Yeah.
And it made a difference, both sides, both ways. It made a difference in that game. But what an incredible Mile High Showdown. I mean, the Rocky Mountain Showdown was just ridiculous.
That was unreal. And Shedeur Sanders, there's something special. And you see that in those type of quarterbacks, those type of players, where even if things haven't been going right, they still are like, okay, we can keep doing this. We can keep going.
Oh, my gosh.
Manning had it. Elway had it. Favre had it. Yeah.
Wilson.
Montana had it.
No, not so much Wilson anymore.
And speaking of that, did you watch that yesterday?
No, because here was the plan.
Move. Yeah.
I never do this because it never works. because we had a baseball game yesterday that ate into, I'm like, I'm not going to watch anything about the Broncos. I'm just going to watch the game from the beginning when when it's over, and then I'll watch it. And it gave me a chance to go to Costco after the baseball game and do all that stuff you do on Sundays to get ready for the week. But, you can't keep information from flowing into you unless you set fire to a phone or something. And so, of course, the last 2 minutes of the game. After that, I was like, no, I can't watch this. And then to read stories about, hey, we were up 21-3 at one point, and be like, what's going on with the Broncos?
It was really weird to see the Broncos yesterday, because the first half and the second half were dramatically different. And it was shocking how different it was. And it's that idea where, and I see it a lot in soccer, where one of the coaches makes those halftime adjustments and changes tactics, and the other coach couldn't respond. And that's what I had the feeling of, is that we were unable to respond to changes that Washington did at halftime. And they stifled what we were trying to do and what we did in the first half. And we had nothing afterwards. And it's, the protection for Russell Wilson is atrocious. That has not been solved at all. But he is now he's gun shy. He has about 2.5 seconds in his head, and after that he looks to get out of the pocket. And it's barely a 3 count anymore. And he gets so flustered because he's expecting someone on either left side or the right side is gonna break free, because we just can't protect him. So you're counting, it's a 1, 2, and he's gone. He's rolling out, and that changes protection, changes what you have the ability to do, changes what your wide receivers can do. It was difficult to watch. And while I don't think that Russell is necessarily washed up, he's not the same player that he was. And at times other players need to step up, and they didn't. Boy. And the thing for me, though, is why can't we protect
I don't know.
That's the part that just it baffles me.
To contrast with Shedeur, by the way, it feels to me like Dion has created an offense that highlights his son for the NFL, because he has taken a kid that can clearly run, because he did on Saturday. When he needed to, he would get and said, you are going to be a pocket passer. You are going to be a pocket passer. You're going to be under center. You're going to drop back from time to time. But I mean, this dude is in there while the pocket is moving and collapsing around him. And he's still, I don't know. He's a hell of a special kid. But the other special thing I forgot to mention, Billy, forgive me, was, Trey's not a big football guy. I think he went to one football game at Rock Canyon.
Yeah.
He wanted to go because he wanted to see his friend and hang out and all that. But he tells me ahead of time, he goes, yeah, it's probably going to be a blowout. So I think I'll probably leave at halftime, just get back up to Fort Collins and stuff. I'm watching him one section over. We're about at the same row, and he's in that ADA seating. And he and Lucas are just grinning it up, loving it. I keep going over to check in with him.
Oh, that's great.
And he's like, this is incredible. He stayed for the whole game. Graham and I are already in the car. He and Lucas stayed the whole game. And even Lucas, who's a CU kid, I see him cheering for CSU, and I'm like, whoa, black and gold, what's going on there? And he's like, well, I think it's a much more interesting story if CSU wins. I'm like, who cares if it's an interesting story, man? And then he said, and he's a fencer, right? Like, he's a fencing guy. He goes, and last week, the CU football team kicked us out of our fencing room so they could have some kind of a banquet. So they're not very big on my list right now. And I'm like, okay, I got personal. It was like Dion, it just got personal. It had nothing to do with mama. That. It was,
that's
you gored my ox. Screw you. So, but they loved it. And Trey was he was so happy. And I was like, this is great, because he just, it will get us at least one other game together sometime down the road, because he's just, like I said, he'd rather spend his time doing other things or hanging out with buddies. But it was fantastic.
That's wonderful. That is a fantastic story.
And then that all turned into, before yesterday's baseball game, Big Daddy had to go run 16 miles.
Yeah, how'd that go? That well, huh?
Well, listen, I'll say this. I can tell I'm getting in better shape, whatever slow progress that is, because when I first ran the 10 miles, I was like, I can't make. Then the 12 miles, then at 14 miles, like when I ran the 14 miles at 12, I was like just praying that some bicyclist clipped me or something. Like, can I lean into them, and somehow, but now, trying to keep my heart rate acceptable. I can never keep it low because, it's me. And so I went to the Cherry Creek Trail or whatever that is out there. It runs up and down Parker. Like, it goes forever. So I go park there. I run down for 8 miles and turn around and come back. Meanwhile, by the way, thought of you, almost took a picture.
Oh, yeah?
I'm running along a part of the trail where there is, no joke, a break for snakes sign on it. And I'm laughing openly, like, yeah, right. Swear to God, buddy, a rattler, right alongside the paved area. And I'm running, and as I'm coming up, I'm hearing this little, and I'm like,
oh, nice.
And I look down and I see this thing, and he's starting to do that coil back thing. I don't know what any of it means, but I'm like, oh my goodness. Stay away. I mean, I made a little pee and sped up a little.
Remember this though, when the snake coils, at least in the North American snakes, they can only leap forward. They can only get forward as far as their body is off the ground. So you can actually judge it based on what you're looking at.
I was going to tell myself that, but I didn't know it, and I didn't care, buddy. When someone sees a rattlesnake right along the trail and it's doing that little thing, all I'm picturing is some kind of Hitchcockian snakes. Like, this is the day they attack. So, but I instantly thought of you. I'm like, and for a moment, I'm like, do I go back and try to take a picture? Nope. I'm just going to keep going.
Oh,
so, great. At about, once again, 2 miles shy of where it ends, I start to pray for death.
Oh, geez.
And I'm drinking the water, and I'm thinking, do I have enough water? Am I going to make it back? Is this a populated enough trail that people will find me face down? Yeah, with the snake attached. Or something. And finally made it, and I felt good about it, but just wrecked for the rest of the day. Like, my legs feel sore now, but I feel like I'm getting better, but I don't know where to go from here, man. Like, the idea.
I would recommend stopping.
The idea of running
that's mine,
18 miles next Sunday will ruin the next 6 days of my life. Because all I'll be dreading is,
it'll ruin all the days beforehand, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Miles. It's ruined. In 3 days, I got to run 18
that's
miles.
Horrible.
And then I do the math in my head, and I'm like, wait, 16 is 10 miles less than a marathon.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you have made bad choices.
What the hell is going on?
I do not know why you did this. You should sit quietly and think about what
and then I did the whole burn the boats thing where I bought the plane tickets, man, to go. I had held off thinking maybe I'll rupture something and I won't be able to go. But now
you'll be lucky.
Now I've purchased them and I'm stuck. Now I'm like, I'm going one way or the other. So anyway, it was a hell of a weekend, and then finished up with me walking around slowly, heavy legs, thinking to myself, what do you do with the rest of your day? Walking around Costco at a pace where Graham, and I'm like, let's go grab some stuff after the game. And Graham at one point is like, Dad, you're taking forever. Can we just, whatever you're going to do, can we just hurry it up? And I'm like, son, I'm just pacing myself. I'm trying. I don't want to miss anything good. It's Costco. There might have something I need.
Exactly.
And we're going up and down the road, and I can see him. He's like, and I go, find the thing that you want. Go leave and find it and come back, and then we'll go. And it's just like,
I will sit here quietly and cry.
And I've realized I'm walking at the pace of most of the average shoppers. Do you know what I mean? Like just that sort of like this was today's endeavor. But otherwise, it's great to be back. This week, nothing but time in the studio. You and we get to kill it here. I think, oh my God, we've really blown up.
I know. I was looking at that too. I'm like, I think you set a new record when you're back. That's fantastic.
Oh, buddy, I looked down. It was 6:32, and I thought, well, this is a 2-minute conversation.
Yeah, I know. I figured that is too.
Well, let's punch out and see what damage we can do here. We got to come back for the Thorpe Report, and then you choose the news. I'm not sure how to do it all, Billy. I'm going to trust that you have the ability to move things around and make the magic happen.
That's another mistake you've made this morning.
And there'll be plenty more where that comes from. Stick around. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Yep, it's a new record. According to Alexa, the unofficial official historian for the show, we hit that 640 mark unintentionally. Yeah. It was just, I think it was because we were gone. I was gone for so long. But let's get right to it. Let's get to the Thorpe Report, see what this man can do with his 15 seconds.
Yeah, just like Ed Sheeran and bad habits, our bad habit of talking too long. Well, good morning, sir. Warm, sunny weather is sticking around for the start of this work week. Denver metro area is going to see high soars in the mid-80s. Monday afternoon. Weak system's going to pass over our northern border, generate a few high country storms, not much down here. Calm and dry Wednesday, Thursday. Highs return to the low to mid-80s. Cold front swinging into our state Thursday into Friday, dropping our daytime lows, highs into upper 70s. 5 people were injured in a shooting in Lodo Saturday night, according to DPD. Police said the shooting happened in the 1900 block of Market Street. 4 people were shot, said another victim located, and there was a total of 5. They said the victims are all expected to survive, but they have no suspects, and they have not identified anybody or talked about why the shooting occurred. Elsewhere, a 17-year-old driver was killed after crashing into several fences and yards early on Sunday.
Jeez.
Lakewood police said the crash happened after midnight on Sunday. Happened in the area of Jellison Court and West Kentucky Drive, that's south of Addenbrook Park. Police
I know that area.
Yeah, police said the teen drove through several fences and yards before hitting the side of a house.
Dude, that's by a Belmar Elementary.
Yeah, it is. Yep, right over there. No one was inside the home at the time of the crash. Investigators said the driver, who is 17-year-old, died from their injuries. Identity has not been released. Nobody else was inside the vehicle at the time of the crash, and nobody else was injured. They're not sure as to what caused, but they're starting with alcohol and drugs. Police in Aurora are investigating a fatal 2-vehicle crash involving a motorcycle that occurred on Saturday morning. Happened around 10:30 in the morning, Iliff Avenue and Quintero Street. Police say the motorcyclist was traveling at a high rate of speed on Iliff Avenue. That never happens. Ran a red light at the intersection and collided with a Honda SUV.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw a motorcycle this morning that had to be doing maybe 85 going down Hampton. Yeah. The rider, an adult male, was taken to a local hospital where he died Saturday afternoon from his injuries. United States has a Grand Tour winner again. Sepp Kuss won the Spanish Vuelta, who became the first American to win one of cycling's top races.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, since Chris Horner won that in 2013. Kuss grew up in Durango, now lives in Andorra. Elsewhere, CU beat CSU and the Broncos suck. All right, that's it.
Buddy, that was quite a speed job there.
Yeah, we did that.
We're going to cut away for a quick break, folks. I know that there's a couple issues, by the way, with the app that we're trying to figure out right now. Thank you for texting in. But when we come back, we're going to do the You Choose the News, the good stuff. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. OMG, it's time for You Choose the News.
The news. Better than You Choose the Nudes. That's a whole different thing that we used to play in college. Alrighty. Hey, that's not good. Teach me to touch that button. Alrighty, it's time for You Choose the News, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, where we have scoured the interwebs for mere moments over the weekend to find ridiculous stories, giving them dumb headlines to play this fake radio news game. Why? Because the people in charge have no idea we're doing it, so keep it a secret. Alrighty, sir. Here are your choices this morning. Headline number 1, misleading headline. Headline number 2, surprise concealed carry. Headline number 3, city officials cancel fun. And headline number 4, a man, a dream, an ocean. Alrighty. Your headline choices yet again are...
I know. Because of the time thing, let's just go with concealed carry.
Okay, surprise concealed carry. You heard a little while ago that at an Oakland Athletics Chicago White Sox game at Guaranteed Rate Field, there was a shooting. The incident left people shocked because 2 women were hurt during the shooting. But the real surprise in the story is the shots may have been fired by one of the women. Yes, according to the investigation, one of the women admits to sneaking a gun inside the stadium. How? Oh. She did it in her big fat belly. Yes, it is a larger woman, and she admits that she lifted up the folds of her belly, hid the gun underneath it, and then came inside, hiding the gun in her belly
and
fat.
A hoagie.
And, yes, and some of her small children. And evidently the gun went off, surprise, grazing herself and her friend. So, yes, she hid the gun in her belly fat.
When fat kills.
I'm just saying that, this is going to make those pre-game screenings really uncomfortable.
No, who wants to do it?
Intimate.
Who wants to do that?
Very, very intimate. Alrighty, sir. Misleading headline, city officials cancel fun.
A man, a plan, an ocean.
A man, a dream, an ocean. We go to Tampa, Florida for this one. Soiful Ray Reza Baluchi was arrested recently in Tampa, Florida by the U.S. Coast Guard. Why? He just was trying to follow a dream. He was trying to go across the Atlantic Ocean to the United Kingdom from Florida in a giant hamster wheel. Yes, he had constructed a giant hamster wheel, and they contacted him off the coast of Georgia. At the time, he said, "Get away," and he was armed with 2 knives and threatened to use a bomb to blow himself up. But yet again, the Coast Guard realized that the bomb in the water, not so worky. So he actually was lying about the bomb. He's been arrested. Back in 2021, he tried to do it again. This time, he was heading to New York from St. Augustine, Florida. He was trying to do it in a giant hamster wheel. Evidently has something for hamster wheels. Alrighty, final choice, sir. Misleading headline or city officials cancel fun?
Fun is canceled.
Fun is canceled. This is awful. This happened recently at Rogers Park. That is a Chicago Park district in Loyola Beach. They just found out that maybe part of Loyola Beach is not a nudist beach. Yes, recently, Chicago Park District officials came over and cut down a sign that had been erected at the beach, saying, I did that on purpose, saying that beyond this point, Loyola Beach is now a nudist beach. Someone had actually gone and manufactured what looked like a legitimate sign, placed a pole in concrete, and put it up at the beach. Whoever did that, you have my appreciation. That is a fantastic prank that college me would have really, really done a lot of damage with. But again, dude put up a fake nude beach sign. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I've got one near the house, too, for fun. Hey, listen, that's all we've got. Stick around. Republicans in disarray. We'll talk about it. George Brauchler, 710 KUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. It's hour number 2 of 4. You know that at 10 o'clock we get replaced by a guy named Charlie Kirk, and then we go Dennis Prager an hour later, 2 hours after that, Sebastian Gorka, and then we go right back into this chair right here with Deb Flora from 3 to 4, and the soon-to-be exiting Stephen Tubbs. Got to tune into these shows. I know you would anyway, but these are the final shows of Stephen Tubbs' radio career, or so he says. He could be Tom Bradying us. We don't know. But I don't think so, at least not in the short term. He's set to retire in November. I predict each show will become riskier and riskier, both for him, the station, and of course the listening audience. So tune into that for sure. Some things that happened over the weekend. My God, there was so much that happened. And I know Billy and I in the 6 o'clock hour talked about the things that affected us directly just because we were participants in them, whether it's teaching your dog to herd cats, not yet snakes, but cats, or the football games that went on and the run and all that other stuff. But there was a lot of national news, especially since I was gone at the end of last week. You know that the impeachment inquiry has begun in the case of Joe Biden on the House side of things. Very interesting what's going on there. There's also been some additional polling that has come out, but there have been things that have shown themselves to be real issues, I think, in the coming campaign for 2024, both locally within the state of Colorado and nationally. Fissures, if you will, amongst the Republican ranks. And I'm going to begin with something national. You know, and it's national, by the way, with a local connection. You know the name Jenna Ellis because Jenna Ellis was a local product here. She was, I think, for a time an adjunct professor at CCU at Colorado Christian University. She had also been on the radio from time to time. I think, had she been on here, Billy? Had she ever done fill-in work at 710? Maybe. I don't recall that, but I know that she's been on the radio. She's got her own radio show now. You also know that she rocketed to prominence back in like 2020 based on some interviews that she gave for Fox or some other national outlets. And Donald Trump saw them and he was like, whoa, she's a champion and she defends me. I want to get her on board. So she became one of that stable of attorneys that I think we saw a lot on the news, all showing up together. Guys like Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and then Jenna Ellis. And I'm sure there's others, but those are the 3 big ones that stick out in my mind. She is also now one of the 19, including the president, named, I'm going to say co-conspirators, but defendants in the RICO allegations by Fani Willis out of Fulton County, Georgia, for that indictment. So she is facing a prosecution for certain. Well, she has a radio show on American Family Radio. It's an evangelical network, and she's been on there for a bit. She also has a ton of social media followers. I think just shy of 1 million. Maybe it's up over 1 million now. I don't know. The last time I looked, a few months ago. So she has some influence. It's hard to know what will happen with each of the defendants in these cases in terms of how they move forward, either pointing the fingers at each other, pointing the fingers at the president, or what. But there's a conversation that Jenna Ellis has with Steve Deace, or Deace. Is it Deace? Deace? Deace. Thank you, Billy. Steve Deace. And you know, Steve, also very influential conservative, who has recently come out and said, I was wrong about the stolen election stuff, words to that effect. Well, Jenna interviews him, I think this weekend, could have been Friday, on her show. And Thursday, thank you, Billy, I was out. This is part of the conversation that Steve has with Jenna.
You do not rise above your own worldview. This would require something of Donald Trump his entire life that he has evaded. And in his mind, successfully, whether it's with failed marriages or businesses, he has avoided repentance, the accountability that of bowing the knee. I screwed up. I'm not what the people are waiting for. I don't tiptoe between the raindrops. I'm not sinless. All right. I need the Lord in my life, the only sinless one. He won't do it.
Now that's Steve Deace, and it is clearly from an evangelical perspective that he is voicing these concerns about the president. And it's not even from the standpoint of forgiveness, because you can't get to forgiveness until you get to the acknowledgement of wrongdoing. And he hasn't done it. That's interesting because Steve was a huge defender of the president. And my guess is if you asked him, he might still vote for him if the option was Biden. But huge defender of the president, huge defender of the stolen election narrative. And now it appears that he is turning a different direction. All of this, by the way, while the poll numbers continue to get better and better for President Trump, certainly within the Republican Party. And in some polls, he's neck and neck with Biden. Some he's slightly ahead. There are some where he's slightly behind as well, but very competitive. But he's exploding in the Republican Party. The support for him has been epic. But here's someone that isn't going to probably support him in this next election, and she was his attorney.
Really incredibly well said, Steve. And I think that you perfectly articulated exactly how I, as a voter, feel. And I know him well as a friend, as a former boss. I have great love and respect for him personally. But everything that you just said resonates with me as exactly why I simply can't support him for elected office again. Why I have chosen to distance is because of that, frankly, malignant narcissistic tendency to simply say that he's never done anything wrong, and the total idolatry that I'm seeing from some of the supporters that are unwilling to put the Constitution and the country and the conservative principles above their love for a star is really troubling. And I think that we do need to, as Americans and as conservatives, and particularly as Christians, take this very seriously and understand where are we putting our vote. Thank you so much, Steve Deace. We'll be right back with more.
That was the end of one of the segments of Jenna Ellis's show on American Family Radio. I think it's called the Jenna Ellis Show. I think that's the title of it. But I found that to be really interesting, because this isn't just somebody who is like a Steve Deace, who was kind of on the outside looking in, maybe had his toe on the inner circle. Jenna Ellis was the inner circle with Rudy, with Sidney Powell. She was Donald Trump's attorney, and in some regards, a bit of a spokesperson on some of these legal issues. Huge supporter. And she says, I still love this guy. He's a friend. He's a former boss, but I cannot support him. I cannot support him because of what she called a malignant narcissistic tendency. Well, that is huge, isn't it? When your former attorney can't support you politically for something that is described in such strong terms as a toxic character trait. What does that say? And as I heard this thing play out, and I read about it online first, I remember thinking, what will people say who had been huge cheerleaders for Jenna up until then? Like, how many folks out there, even listening to this show right now on 710, were like, in years past, ever since she rose to national prominence, oh yeah, Jenna Ellis, she's the bomb, she's great, she's fantastic, she's the fighter we need, I'm so glad she's in Trump's corner, all these great things. And now for her to voice this, does your opinion change about her? And if it changes, what is that based on? Like, in my mind, here's what I'm hearing from other folks that are out there, social media and otherwise. She's a traitor. She is a traitor, not because what she says isn't true. And by the way, she'd have far more facts and background than anybody that could possibly call into this show or listen, right? More than anybody. And she says, I can't support this guy politically because of these malignant narcissistic tendencies. And so there's this fissure, and I wonder how far, if at all, it extends with the evangelical community. Because remember, evangelicals, that you can be forgiven. You can be forgiven, but not without admitting wrongdoing and pledging not to do it again. We don't even get to the wrongdoing admission by DJT. So we have this, I don't know if it's a growing fissure. I would say it could be, just because these are two prominent people that have some influence. But you look at the polling and it's like, God, the more stuff they throw at this guy, the more the base and the Republicans tend to rally around him. I don't know if that's true for unaffiliateds, But the polling I've seen between he and Biden, man, you got to be freaked out if you're a Democrat, right? Like, we're losing to this guy. Like, what can we do? We can't put this guy down. There are no silver bullets or stakes or fire that will take this guy down. He keeps coming back, and he keeps coming back stronger. But is this something where you say, okay, Jenna was there. Jenna had those conversations. She was in that inner circle, and this is what she's concluded. Maybe I need to reevaluate. Do you think like that? Or is your gut reaction, and be honest, is your gut reaction, screw her? What a traitor. They must have gotten to her. She's now a RINO. Honestly, as you're sitting around, driving around, or you're listening at home or whatever, are you saying, oh, yeah, Jenna Ellis, RINO? And we're going to purge now all the people, not that disagree with our policies or our principles, but just with this one guy. And that's what she talks about when she talks about total idolatry that she's seeing from some of the supporters that are unwilling to put the Constitution and the country and conservative principles above their love for a star. But it doesn't end there. That's sort of big / national. And I want to ask you your opinion. Has your opinion changed about Jenna? Does this do anything for you? The fact that Jenna Ellis, the president's former attorney and part of his inner circle, has said that, does it change anything you think about this guy? Because I could also see people saying, I get it. I totally agree. Dude has huge narcissistic tendencies. I don't care. The alternative is so horrible. I don't care. Is Jenna a traitor? Because these are these ridiculously toxic words that are thrown out these days. If you disagree with me, you're a traitor. It's treasonous. It's all this stuff. Like, the country hinges on this next vote, and if we don't win it, then we're all going to Planet of the Apes or something like that. We're all going to be caged in, and people are going to be poking and prodding us because we're conservatives and Christians. That's not what Jenna's saying here. But it doesn't end there either. Now, if you'll recall, there was a letter that was penned by Todd Watkins. He's the vice chair of the El Paso County Republican Party, and that thing got sent out across the Colorado Republican wire there. I got it. I got the letter. I read it. And then Ken Buck put one out, and Dave Willaims, who's going to be with us at 8:03 this morning, the chair of the GOP, he sent both those letters out, and I think it's good to do that. You know, we're going to have this conversation out in the open. And Ken Buck's piece is, here are all of these things that counsel against these wild accusations that say that these January 6th people are being held without any bail or charges and all of this stuff. Well, we then had Ken on the radio, and he talked about that. Ken also talked about a little MTG and the CrossFit stuff. That got some interesting national attention to it. By the way, thank you. Well, guess what? Saturday, that would be 2 days ago, Todd Watkins, the vice chair of El Paso, penned another letter, and Dave Willaims and the GOP sent that one out to the same distribution, keeping this conversation going. And so I have in my hand, and by the way, some folks had texted in and said, hey, got to have Todd on. I really like the letter, or got to have Todd on. I want to hear what he describes. You should know I reached out and tried to figure out how can I get a hold of Todd. Love to have Todd on. Love to have this conversation. As you know, there's no phone call we won't take. There's no interview that I won't do on this show. We've reached out to everybody all the time. Rarely do I ever say no. It has to be so far off topic that I wouldn't do it. But Todd, I'd love to have Todd on. So if you know how to get a hold of Todd, let me know. Because he references, by the way, Billy, I didn't tell you this, he references our show in the first paragraph. So it's dated Saturday, September the 16th, 2023. Oh, look at this. I can't even get to this letter because Billy, what did you do to make the lines blow up? Full lines, 303-696-1971 is the number. I'll get into the Ken Buck letter, Todd Watkins back and forth. I think it's also interesting, but I think it dovetails nicely into this conversation that we're going to start with somebody named Jose from Arvada. Jose, can you see?
Good morning, George.
Hey, sir.
George, I will answer the Jenna Ellis question, but I want to stand back for a moment and look at where we are. The issue about loyalty is being provided before us on a platter by Donald Trump. And we see it in all the different realms of society. We have the political, we've got the media, we have the bureaucrats, and you can see what's happening is as pressure is being applied on what you believe, in other words, where you stand on the Constitution, what your true values and principles are, we see the pressure collapse certain individuals. And I'll give you a list of names: John Roberts, Megyn Kelly, Ron DeSantis, excuse me.
You're saying, Joe, they don't
Mitt
support
Romney.
the Constitution?
I'm not done.
I know, Joe. Joe, hang on. You can go through whatever list you want on your time, but on this show, you gave me 4, and I just want to ask: are you saying that these are folks who no longer? Joe, I will do it all day long, brother. It's my show. You don't get to call in and vomit on air. We get to have a conversation. So my question to you, and that's part of the conversation, is of those 4 names you read, and I'm sure you have a list a lot longer, is it your position that they no longer support the Constitution? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is once pressure is applied where we are seeing what they believe by how they are coming across and what they actually say, then we also see that there's a turn, and there have been many people turn. Ron DeSantis loved Donald Trump. He was everything when he was helping him get the governorship of Florida. Now, where is Ron DeSantis at? Come on, man.
Ron DeSantis is running for president.
I understand. And now
is that an act of disloyalty to run for president?
Donald Trump is now the despicable Donald Trump. If you look
has he said that?
John
Has he
Roberts,
called him despicable?
Just a moment. John Roberts, who came to power as a conservative justice that was going to be a respectable conservative leading the court. And what has he become? The wine and cheese justice is what he is. He's just a liberal dressed up as a conservative because the pressure has been applied and the truth has come out.
Explain his vote in Dobbs.
Look, I don't sit there and look at any particular vote as being emblematic of who they are because he's
then why do you say that about him?
Himself. Let me finish my sentence.
Joe, buddy, you are so close to being the second person I've ever cut off.
From interrupting.
Now you are the second person I've cut off. 303-696-1971. Joe, listen carefully. We entertain your calls all the time, as crazy ass comments as you make all the time, but I will not yield to you uninterrupted minutes for you to just make stuff up without being challenged. You're not bothered by facts. I get it. You're not bothered by the individual cases that John Roberts has voted on that disabuse anyone of this notion that he's a wine and cheese liberal dressed up as a conservative. Okay. But buddy, you call in here again and you at any point chastise me for asking you questions, I'm going to dump you all day long. That's just how it's going to work. This isn't the Joe show. This is the George show. And I want to have conversations, not just listen to you puke up your nonsense. 303-696-1971. Ron from Greeley, you're on 710. What do you think, Ron?
Wow, that was great, huh?
Good Lord, buddy.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, everybody needs to speak, but let's be respectful. You were right as far as in a sense that people are just so fed up with what's going on the left that they're like, you know what? Yeah, we've got to go right. However, your opinions are coming across as fact. I don't know if you
as what? Say that word again.
Do that. Your opinions come across as fact.
As fact?
Yes.
What does that mean? Tell me what that word means.
No. Fact. F-A-C-T.
Oh, F-A-C-T. I'm so sorry, man. I couldn't hear the word. Go ahead.
and so and some of it you're right, some of it you're not. However, we all have our opinions. And we all have our rights. What I just can't stand, George, is why in the world are people still stuck on this deal? If you're right, then I don't like you. I don't want to do business with you. I mean, are we still really in a financial civil war over this? I have to say yes, we are, because people are still strongly standing against you if you want to be Donald Trump's supporter. It has nothing to do with, he definitely is narcissistic and stuff. However, look what he's done for our country. I just go off of what he has done. One of the greatest ones, George, that I just love is that he made it a felony to hurt animals. I love that one. Why that took so long, I have no idea.
That?
I don't know. But
it sounds like that would be a congressional change, right?
I don't know. I just know that it was a felon. It is now a felony to cause harm to animals, and that has never happened under anybody else, and I don't understand it. But
well, he may have signed that thing into law, and he should get credit for that. But he can't on his own make something a felony, as you know. But I get that piece of it. Let me ask you with regard to the Jenna Ellis thing. Did you have an opinion about her before, when she was in the trenches with the Don, fighting to defend him, versus now when she has come out and said, I just can't support this guy politically because of this thing you acknowledge, which is this narcissism?
Well, you know what? I think you are also right when you said, did somebody get to her? It is one of those things that it's kind of like if you're an addict and people say, oh, you can't trust what they say. And when they're actually speaking the truth, people, no, he is an addict. But it is kind of scary as to what power the Democrats have and how they look what they're doing to oh my gosh, I hate when my mind goes blank.
Ron, with the power stuff, are you suggesting that when you say somebody got to Jenna, what do you in your mind? What do you think has happened here?
Some sort of intimidation
to get her to say these things.
Aren't they going after a lot of his lawyers to try to get him disbarred on stuff?
Fani Willis is prosecuting her. She's one of the 19, Trump included, co-defendants on her RICO case. That's true.
And so I'm just thinking, and they're doing it just because they're thinking we may not even win, but we're going to damage them financially so hard. That's our goal. We're going to get them one way or another.
But before I cut you loose, Ron, and we're just running up late on a break here, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this. Is it possible that nobody has gotten to Jenna or Steve Deace or any of these folks, and they've just now had a change of opinion based on whatever they've experienced, whatever they've witnessed? Is that possible?
Sure. Anything's possible. Sure.
Do you think that's less likely than somebody got to her? And if so, do you think it's like Fani Willis reached out and said, hey, if you start talking smack about the Don, we'll make your case go away or something?
Well, I honestly believe that, anything is possible. They could change their minds. However, when I look at the history of what is going on across the board, how there's prosecution left and right with a heavy hand, and you know this, when it comes to being a Republican and January 6th, people, the heavy hand of prosecution that is being laid down versus what was done in all the other states when places were burned, police stations were burned, and nothing but a slap on the wrist. We've got serious problems. That's two-tier judgment.
Well, and I don't think it's the federal government dealing with those. That's not the federal government. That's the problem I have, man, is I don't believe that there's enough potential unreported, unexposed coordination that can take place between the federal government out in DC and, the Denver DA's office. And what the Denver DA's office chooses to do, I believe, is a product of their leader and her ideological belief. But I don't think that anybody from DC calls up and says, don't do anything to the George Floyd protesters. I don't think that happens ever.
You don't really?
Never, ever, never. Never.
Oh, my friend. Okay. Well, I think that there's definitely heavy hands that rule, and people, if they don't abide, they will get taken out financially. That's the biggest, easiest way. Just let's prosecute him.
The dude that set fire to Billy's home is the dude that set fire to the police station has been ordered to pay $12 million and is serving 4 years in prison.
That's one example.
Well, but it was one you gave.
People were there. I'm sorry?
It's one you gave. You said they're not being held accountable.
I'm saying that's one I apologize. Yeah. That's one person out of all the offenders.
Yeah, but there have been so many we've talked about this in the past. There have been like over 10,000 or something arrested. I can't remember the exact number, but over 10,000 of those post-George Floyd protesters were arrested. I can't tell you how each of their cases resolved, in large part because they're dispersed out geographically through local prosecutions. I'm sure there's numbers out there, but it's not that nothing happened. It's just that this is a high-profile, federal-driven prosecution, very different than all of these individual localities doing it. It's not like they just said, go away. I would like to have seen Denver take a much harder line approach, no doubt about it. The things they allowed to take place at the Capitol are inexplicable and unjustifiable. But I don't believe they're the product of some greater George Soros-driven Democrat Party who has a secret back channel phone to every elected official in Colorado that says, here's the game plan. I just don't believe that, man.
Well, and that's what makes it so brilliant, is because a lot of people won't be able to believe it. Of course,
I need to see evidence of it. And so far I've seen nothing. It seems mostly conjecture. But it's important because, and Ron, forgive me, man, I got to cut you loose. Because Ron, you're not alone in thinking like that. There are a lot of people out there who are probably saying, that's right. Go, Ron, go. And yet we don't have any evidence of it. It's just that, well, these guys didn't get treated this way by the locals and these guys got treated this way by the feds. Thus there's coordination and a two-tiered system. And I don't think so. The two-tiered system that exists, and I do believe it exists, is the elite and the rich versus you and me. They get treated differently. And it's not an R&D thing, man. It's an elitist thing. That's what gets treated differently. 303-696-1971. Brian, I promise I'll get to you after a quick break. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Why should you buy your next vehicle at Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram? We make car shopping easy. We have a huge inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles. We can even custom order. We make it easy. Easy financing, friendly staff. And when it comes to quality service, our expert technicians keep your vehicle in top shape. Visit us today off of Highway 25 and Plum Creek, or shop online at castlerockcdjr.com. Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Car shopping made easy.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Want to get to the callers. We love them. Brian from Arvada, you're on 710. Brian, what are your thoughts, my man?
Hey, George, you're always talking about facts. Show me the facts on the election. Show me the facts on BLM prosecutions not having a heavy hand. Well, just flip that. Show me the facts on any of these indictments with Donald Trump. There are none.
Wait a minute,
show me the facts that he incited
what do you mean by
an
that?
insurrection.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, you always want to see the facts. Do you have facts that Donald Trump should be indicted of inciting an insurrection?
Well, he's not charged with inciting an insurrection.
Well, he's in charge of a conspiracy to overthrow the government.
No.
For renting a conference
He's
room.
not charged with conspiracy to overthrow the government. That's not the charges. There are
to change the election. I mean, George, I've read all of them. I've read all the indictments. There's no facts behind these. So
hold on,
again, when you want to talk about
are
facts,
allegations of facts. Okay, so the indictment themselves.
They're not facts.
Why do you say that?
They're not facts, George.
How are they not?
So you
facts?
always want. There's somebody. You can indict a ham sandwich according to Dershowitz. So come on, George. There's somebody's manufactured facts. Okay.
Well,
so
what's
when
the difference
you always
between
talk about
facts and manufactured facts for purposes of indictment?
George, because you're an ex-prosecutor, you have faith in the system.
No, I'm asking you to, Brian, just tell me what you mean by that, because every indictment I've ever been a part of has included a recitation of facts, not as I see them, but as they came out in front of the grand jury. Now, granted, it doesn't give you the other side. It doesn't give you their defenses. I agree with you all that. They're mere allegations, but they're allegations of facts. So when you say they are not facts, they're manufactured facts, I'm asking, what do you mean?
Just like you said, George, there's somebody's facts brought to the case, just like the Russia collusion. Those were all facts. And then they ended up being false facts. So guess what? They weren't facts. The call to Ukraine, the impeachment trial there, those were facts brought by the Congress that Trump did this. Guess what those ended up being? False facts. So same with these indictments. They're facts, like you say, but they're going to be ended up being false facts. Because like you said, you could find any grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. So
you can't do that. There are things called no true bills that the grand jury ends up rendering no charges on. That happens.
I'll take Dershowitz opinion that it's so easy to indict somebody in a liberal, in DC.
Hey, listen, I have so much respect for Alan Dershowitz. He's so much smarter than I am. He's also never been a prosecutor. Dude's been a defense attorney his whole life. His perspective is as the defense attorney. That doesn't make him wrong. I'm just telling you, that's his perspective.
Also, point of information here. Brian, point of information here. Robert Mueller laid out the conversations and communications between Russia and the Trump campaign. The Senate had an investigative committee that was headed by Marco Rubio, by Republicans, that did come to the conclusion that Russia was trying to interfere in the 2016 election to favor Donald Trump, and had a direct line from the Trump campaign to intelligence systems inside of Russia. That is a Republican-led commission inside of the Senate. Saying that it's a hoax is not correct. They also did have the phone call between Trump and Zelensky, and the impeachment is a political mechanism, not a criminal mechanism. That is political. So saying that they didn't impeach him on it doesn't mean that the facts didn't exist. It's not a criminal trial, nor is it a civil trial. It is a political mechanism. So stop saying that the Russian thing was a hoax. Go and read the Mueller report. He outlines it. He says it doesn't rise to collusion, but did they coordinate? Yes, absolutely. The Senate agreed they coordinated, and that was led by Republicans. Go back and read the reports.
It was different, though, Billy, than what had been pushed out there by the mainstream media and the talking heads for all the big-time Democrats. They had pushed it out as something far more than it turned out to be.
Yes, and what Schiff was saying, absolutely.
Was it
the
a
idea
crime,
that it was a hoax is
Did it
not
rise to the
correct.
level of high crimes and misdemeanors, Billy? No. So that's what you.
I'm talking Russia. Russia. He was not impeached on Russia.
Brian,
he wasn't impeached for Russia. Russia never came up. That wasn't the issue.
He was impeached off that Ukraine call, the perfect call. You remember that. And then the second one he was impeached for.
Did any of the impeachments rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
So there's your facts. No, that's
I get it, but get back to this thing. Get back to this thing where you said,
well,
there are no facts alleged in this. I'm looking at the indictment. There are a jillion facts alleged. Again, all alleged should be cross-examined.
Great, aren't facts,
but that's
George.
Every indictment has alleged facts, man. The things that are going on right now with the Biden impeachment inquiry, are those facts,
George,
Brian, or those allegations?
We can disagree on what alleged facts are. We can just disagree on it. You want to hang your hat on alleged facts? I don't.
Buddy, that's part of the process.
When they play out,
until there's a conviction, every fact is alleged, right?
Until just like there's the impeachments, when they play out, no crime was committed. Just like when these play out,
they're not criminal. The impeachments aren't criminal. But Brian, every allegation includes alleged facts. Brian, until there's a conviction, you'd agree with that, right? Like even an accused murderer, there's an allegation of facts until there's a conviction.
I'll agree. Alleged facts. Yep. Just like or alleged facts.
But what's the problem?
I'll agree all
day.
What's
the problem? So what's
I'm not
wrong
hanging
with
my hat on alleged facts.
What is it you're waiting for then? If you won't believe the allegations, what are you waiting for? The conviction?
I'm waiting for non-political prosecutions. That's what I'm waiting for. I mean, when you've got a politically motivated prosecution, how are you supposed to hang your hat on anything they say? And when it's all politically motivated, George, I mean, that's what I'm waiting for is a non-political prosecution. And about Jenna Ellis, okay, I agree with her.
Thank you for coming back there, man.
I actually agree with her. I'm a Christian. I agree. Trump's a narcissist, okay? But you know what? He's our narcissist. He's fighting
you've said
for
that
us.
Perfectly, man.
He's fighting for the Americans. What? I go to church. Some of the churches I've gone to, the pastors have been narcissists. Every politician I ever met's a narcissist. Even the mayor of my own city. The billionaires, they're narcissists. But guess what? They're all out looking for themselves. They want to gain stuff for themselves. Trump's put his life and his self on the line for the American people. Everything he's ever done politically
he put what on the line?
He's put his life and his fortune on the line.
How did he
for
put
the
his
American
fortune on the line?
people.
Hold on. How did he put his fortune on the line?
None of these other but oh my God, you know how much money he's lost trying to fight these stupid lawsuits and because being a president? I'm just saying he's put his life on the line. No one else has ever done that. No one else has ever been scrutinized like this guy. He's our narcissist. He's fighting for the Americans. So yeah, Jenna Ellis, I agree with her. Yeah, I'm a Christian. I wish he would repent and do those things. But you know what he's done for us? Now we're going to talk about Jenna Ellis. Like this isn't going to change anything. Trump's the nominee, George. So you can have all these stories about who said this time, who said this time. Because George, you want to convince you want someone else to be more popular in the primaries than Trump right now. You bleed it every day. But it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I think you're probably right, Brian. And I will confess to you, man, I do not want to have to choose between these two clowns, Trump and Biden. I don't want to have to choose between them, man, because neither one of them are my cup of tea. But if I'm stuck with having to pick between what's going on in the White House right now and having Trump again, I know the decision I'm going to end up making, and that's to go with Trump. But I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to be in the position of having to vote for this guy. And Brian, you speak for so many people who are like, this guy has sacrificed. This guy hasn't sacrificed anything ever for anyone on the planet Earth except for himself. Dude's never served never raised his hand to put on the uniform and served his country. This dude has never buddy, he had the opportunity to do it, but he bone spurred his way out of it. I mean, let's be honest, right? This is a guy who hasn't made a single decision yet that doesn't start and stop with how will this affect Donald Trump? Not one.
And I totally disagree.
Well, you find me that one, Brian. Find me what's the decision he made that puts someone else ahead of himself?
Again,
I know it's a stumper, isn't it? It's a tough one.
Well, George, what has anybody ever done that's in a politician?
No, that's not an answer, man. That's not an answer. You just held this guy out as the Jesus of politics. He's put his life on the line. He's risked his fortune. You show me the one thing he's done that's put somebody else before him. Tell me what it is.
George, he hasn't gained. He's put his fortune ahead of being a president. He's put his fortune ahead of it. He's lost money being the president. He could have gone on and made way more money. He's losing deals with his organization. He's losing deals with his golf course. He's losing things because people are politically attacking him. He's losing money. He could have more money right now if he never ran for president. He put it on the line.
Buddy, how can you
us.
say that with Mr. 4 times bankruptcy? How can you possibly say that? There's going to be a trial, Brian, in New York, also politically motivated, but a trial that is going to reveal whether or not this guy lied about the size of his largesse, lied about the size of the assets that he used to back up something. I think it's a ridiculous one, but, and forgive me, Brian, man, I want to keep talking with you. You know, we have good conversations, but Billy is like, dude, you are killing me here by not taking a break. We're at 7:48. I got to cut away for a break and come back and do the Smarty Smarts at Alpine Planning. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. No time to lose. Let's get made smarter by our good friend at Alpine Planning. It's Amy Duncan. Amy, how are you?
Good morning, George.
Good morning.
Well, it's Monday. It's Monday, right?
True.
It is. Boy, that weekend was fast.
Very.
But
go Buffs.
80-degree fall days, can't beat it. So I will jump right in for you, sir. We are looking at very, very minor negative. Dow's off about 25 points. The S&P off about 3. NASDAQ positive by about 3 points. Last week, markets were relatively flat, but with the exception of Friday, in case investors caught that and need a little update on what occurred, we had a technology sell-off. In particular, the S&P was off 1.2% alone on Friday. And when Adobe was off 4.2% midday in trading after its earnings report, really, I like this line. It really just spread like a tentacle through the technology sector. So we also, of course, have the UAW strike. This is big, 13,000 auto workers off the job. We're on day 4 of that. We'll see how it plays out for markets at the 3 big Midwestern plants. So this week, all attention shifts back to the Federal Reserve, George. We got the policy meeting this week, most anticipating that they will hold rates. And of course, that release decision comes on Wednesday. A little bit of a wrap up here. I think it's worth understanding why large companies are having a better year performance-wise than small companies. And so much of it, again, goes back to rate hikes. If you take Microsoft as an example, right, the winners from higher interest rates are basically high-quality borrowers who locked in low interest rates around the pandemic, right? So you take Microsoft, the world's second most valuable company, has more cash and short-term investments than debt. And so it's never going to be affected by higher rates, right? It paid exactly the same interest, which is $492 million last quarter, and it's earning more on its cash.
Wow.
So anyway, it all kind of works together. We'll see how the strike plays out this week.
Oh, yeah.
And if anyone needs some guidance, we're here to help try to point people in the right direction.
Amy, the 2 quickies for you, and they just dovetail off of what you said.
That was really long and convoluted.
No, it was great. It was great.
George.
2 quickies. One, what kind of impact, if any, do you expect this UAW strike with the 3 big U.S. automakers to have on the market? And then 2, the Fed holding rates steady while we've gone through back-to-back months of inflation gain. I know they're desperate to have a soft landing, but are we going to get there?
I actually think it's possible we will get there. And so that's the second question answered. I believe they probably will hold, as most people are pricing in. I think it's like a 99% probability or something this month, but I would expect them to raise in October, frankly.
Interesting.
So anyway, it's kind of this almost like a tug of war, right? Let's give investors what they want this month and show them that we're digesting the data properly, and then kind of ramp up again twice more potentially before the calendar year is over. As it relates to the auto strike, right, George? Strikes are very important, of course, for business, for local economies in particular. I don't see it as a market mover. What I do, what is much bigger is the concept itself, right? Union, non-union negotiations, big companies fighting for, better benefits and a shorter work week, I believe. Who doesn't want to fight for that?
Me.
Wink, wink.
I do. I want a short work.
Anyway, it's almost like a positive contagion, right? And so how they settle and the precedent that GM and Ford end up setting is a big deal. So I think it's really the precedent and the business concept more so than a market.
Can't wait to ask you about this again next week. I don't think it'll be over by then. Alpine Planning Group is a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to improving your long-term financial success. Investing, it's a matter of trust, and they are prepared, as always, to earn yours. Call them today, 303-843-0918, 303-843-0918. Thank you, Amy.
See you, George.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
Listen, full lines. That's just the way we like it around here. I want to get to all of you right after the top of the hour, but at 8:03, we're going to be joined by Dave Willaims. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. We're halfway through the Monday show right here on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Pleased as punch to finally get back online. He's a VIP. He is the chairman of the state GOP party, Dave Willaims. Dave, thanks for carving time out of your busy day for us.
You bet, George. Thanks for having me.
Lots to up, man. Since you've been on, there has been a flurry of things that have taken place. I just hope we have the time to cover all of them. Let's do old business first. Can you update us on the fundraising status for the party? How are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing all right. We're not swimming in cash, but we're not broke. We're paying our bills, and we're preparing for 2024. I think to date we've fundraised about over $200,000, and we have more pledges coming in. It's a bit of a slow roll, but it's coming.
Do we have a goal for by the end of the year? I want to be at blank.
Yeah, we want to be about a $500,000 or more, and we think we can get there. Again, we're trying to finalize some of the other things that we're up to for 2024, and a part of that will be putting together our centennial dinner. We plan on having that in early November, and that should help kickstart everything into the 2024 cycle.
One of the struggles that we talked about in the past was the access to accounts, the bookkeeping, and all that stuff. Has that now all been sorted out?
Yeah, for the most part. We still have a committee that's charged with kind of going through some of that old stuff and doing an audit. We are going to be doing what we can to remedy any past actions, but we've turned a corner and we're in control.
That's good news. Can you tell us, when you say the remedy the past action stuff, is there anything there that you see that leads you to conclude that there was some sort of unethical, underhanded, or illegal dealing? Like, are we talking about, hey, this could end up turning into something bigger than just poor bookkeeping?
Potentially. The executive committee has directed and authorized me to seek potential civil and criminal action.
Wow.
We're still needing to do a little bit more inquiry before we get to that point. But yeah, it's that serious.
Well, listen, you're sitting in Greenwood Village. Not that I have a say in any of this, but if you had a choice between needing to go to the feds, the attorney general's office, or your locally elected Republican district attorney to look into this, I think I'd prefer the latter, just because who knows what happens when you cut it loose to those other folks.
Sure. It's a serious thing that we got to account for, but we're gonna, before we do anything, we're gonna take our time and make sure we have everything in place, and then we'll decide who's the appropriate authority to go to if need be.
The last time that we talked, it was either right before or right after the vote that was taken to change the rules regarding how votes are counted when somebody doesn't appear for a central committee vote, or even just doesn't vote for a central committee vote regarding withdrawing from the statewide primary system that was imposed on us. That thing didn't pass, but are you aware of another effort to offer it again or something like it in the future?
Well, no, there's no bylaw that's going to be offered this go around. I think that was an attempt to try and level the playing field. There is some rules that are trying to get at making things a little bit more even for both sides. So, for instance, I think it's Rule 9 for your listeners who really care about this minutia, is that you're able to still abstain, right? So this only applies to individuals that come to the meeting. Wouldn't apply to those who couldn't show up. But if you come to the meeting and you decide you want to abstain, then the rule would say that your abstention is your abstention. It's not going to dictate what that means, except your vote, because we got to count it one way or the other, will simply go with the majority. So if the opposition has more votes, then it's going to go that way. If the proponents have more votes, then it's going to go that way for purposes of the denominator.
Why would you do that? And how is that different in effect than the prior rule?
Well, we're doing it because if we do nothing else, then that vote's going to be counted in the negative, and that's an unfair disadvantage to just have from the onset. This is fair, and it's different because the Bonniwell Amendment had a predetermined outcome. This isn't predetermined. It's just going to go with the majority. The real answer here is don't abstain. Vote one way or the other.
What happens to the vote for those who can't make it to the meeting?
That's your nothing. I mean, if you're not there, you're not there, and we can't do anything with your vote. So.
But you remember how and you know this better than I do, Dave, but the way the law works, it seems to suggest that because you have to have a certain percentage of the total, are they still counted as part of the totals? That's still, I mean, it doesn't change the percentage you need to get into, I don't know, to pass it, if that's the right word. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, what happens to those? Are they still counted as part of the total of the Central Committee?
Our goal would be to not count them. And we think we can do that for sure, but we are going to try and ensure that their absence won't be affecting people.
Are there proxies available too for this?
Yeah, proxies are available.
When would we see this thing come up for a vote?
September 30th.
And does that require a 2/3 vote to make that change, or is it a simple majority?
Just a simple majority for these rule changes.
And does that simple majority can't take into effect the new rules? It would still be based on whatever the existing rules are for Central Committee votes?
It would take immediate effect upon passage.
But I mean, the votes counting for the passage would still be the old rules? And that is to say that, is it a percentage? Does it have to be 51% of those who attend, presuming a quorum exists, or is it 51% of the total membership?
51%, 50% plus one of those who show up and vote.
Got it. I got that. Something else that has happened, as you know, through some weird, contorted, there must be something else going on behind the scenes effort. There's now a lawsuit to try to keep Donald Trump from being an alternative for voters for president of the United States in the primary system here in the state of Colorado. It just smells funny, man. I mean, if Jenna Griswold had the guts, she'd have just simply said, I'm keeping him off the ballot, and let that lawsuit begin this way. But this idea that, some outside group has just sort of shown up sort of unsuspectingly, and dropped this lawsuit. Let's see what happens and what the courts do. You shot off, and by you, I mean the party, shot off an email that said, listen, here's our potential response to that if they keep Donald Trump off the ballot. Talk about that.
Yeah, you bet. Well, first off, we're moving to intervene. There's a status conference today at 10. The judge is going to ask the Secretary of State why she opposes our motion to intervene, and that'll be interesting. So we're fighting it on the court side of it. If we're unsuccessful, though, we will ask the Republican National Committee to allow us to select our nominees, our national delegates through our caucus assembly process, because at that point, we wouldn't feel that it would be a fair primary if it excluded Donald Trump.
Can that, by the way, I agree. 100% I agree. In fact, I've said this on air too. It would piss me off to no end if somehow the courts were to rule that because of their own determination of what an insurrection is, or whatever the words are that they need to keep him off the ballot, they kept him off the ballot. It would really piss me off, because I don't think it's their business. It's not. This is the 14th Amendment, Section 3 has never been used like this. And I think it would just be a horrible precedent. Having said that, the offer or the suggestion by you guys to go to the national party and say, hey, please let us give our delegates away, can that beat the state law that says, hey, we're going to do a primary?
It's a half measure, because the court, if they rule against what we would like, it would apply to the general election ballot. So it would probably get a little messy if we awarded our delegates, let's say, to Donald Trump, and he gets the nomination at the national convention. There'd probably be another round of litigation with respect to the general election ballot. But yes, we do believe that if we go this other route in awarding our delegates during the primary season, that we can do it. And it would just kind of the state of Colorado, with respect to the Secretary of State, would just have to deal with it.
We're talking with Dave Willaims. He's the state party chair for the GOP. A texter texted in, Dave, and said, ask him if we will need to pay state assembly badge fees.
No, you won't have to. We're obviously going to ask folks to donate and chip in to help cover the costs, but no, our rules do not force that upon anyone.
Do we have a plan as an alternative in place for if this rule change goes through, this different, it's not the Bonniewell one, but whatever the next version of that is that you just described, and you tell me if I'm mischaracterizing it. One aspect of it is to say, we're not going to count people who don't show up as part of the central committee total for purposes of achieving the numbers we need. And two, if you abstain, you show up and abstain, doesn't matter. Your vote is going to be counted with the majority one way or the other. Is there some sense of, I don't know, is there opposition to this thing? Have you heard anything about it?
I've received a number of inquiries about it. I can't say there's been opposition like you saw with the Bonniewell amendment. I suspect there are folks that do oppose this, but I think they oppose it mainly because they oppose the opt-out, which is fine,
Sure.
because it does take away the built-in advantage for those who simply don't want to vote or don't want to show up. But that's okay. I mean, I think that's fine. We can have that debate, and whatever the majority decides. Again, these aren't set in stone. They can vote on it.
If it passes and then the subsequent vote is taken to opt out, do we have a written plan yet that people can chew on? Like, hey, this is how we do it. If we could withdraw from this mandated, unaffiliated voter participation thing, this is what the state party offers.
Yeah, we do. It's actually dependent upon what the Central Committee wants. We're going to present them two options. Option one is we simply convert our ballot access designation assemblies to a nomination assembly. That's option one.
What does that mean?
So if you're a candidate, you have to get 30% of the vote in order to get onto the primary ballot normally. Instead of having that 30%, you'd be 50% plus one. You're the nominee. No other round is required.
And so you would foreclose any participation in the petition process for candidates?
Yeah, that would be option one, because there'd be nothing to petition on to. Option two is that nothing changes for the counties in terms of caucus and assembly. They still do their thing. Candidates still get 30%, and then they would go on to the next round. And the next round would, for all intents and purposes, would very much be like a primary. So all registered Republicans would be able to vote within our system. And our system would be done electronically. And those who want to vote electronically? Yep, we would do electronic voting so that we could open it up to all 900,000 plus registered Republicans. For
Is
those
it
who are
secure, that electronic voting thing?
That was the only way we could guarantee to open it up to all registered Republicans who wanted to participate. And we would have a mechanism for people to do a physical ballot if they were really uncomfortable or unwilling to do so.
Huh, that's interesting, because I can imagine there's a bunch of folks who have probably already brought to your attention the idea that, whoa, what keeps us from getting hacked? How can I protect my vote? That kind of thing. Sure.
And what we're going to do is we're going to contract with some sort of vendor or company should the opt-out pass, and then we'll make sure that we do have a secure system that's 100% auditable.
Two other sections to just quickly cover with you. One, CD8 is that congressional district that we woulda, coulda, shoulda won, but for the Libertarian candidate who I think we all agree probably sucked up a lot of otherwise Republican votes. And you had crafted a deal with them like, hey, please keep your powder dry and don't give us Caraveo Part 2 if we can offer up the right kind of conservative, all that other stuff. And if I've mischaracterized that, tell me. But we have at least two that I'm aware of right now, Scott and Gabe in that race. Is there anyone else you're aware of? And do those two fellas pass that libertarian sniff test enough that the libertarians have indicated to you, hey, we're good with either one of those guys? Or what's the next step in that process?
Sure. Those two are the only two that I'm aware of at this point. I haven't heard of anyone else, and anyone else that was discussed prior, has, I think, passed on the opportunity. The Libertarians have not ruled out those two individuals. I've spoken to at least one of them. I know the other one is interested as well, about kind of putting together a conference call with their leadership team and kind of going through their process so that at the very least they can all have some sort of knowledge of how these candidates are going to operate should they be elected. And I think we're going to get to a point where they'll be satisfied. It's a work in progress, and I keep telling folks that whatever agreement we have is, it's not this kind of hard line position, but it's only a means to ensure that the libertarians are going to be comfortable with whoever we put up.
And the dude that ran as the libertarian last time, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think I read somewhere he's running, but he's just not running as a libertarian. He's running as a something else.
Well, maybe he is. We can't stop all of them, but we certainly think this is a good effort to ensure that it's a binary choice between the Democrat and Republican Party.
Last topic to cover with you in your limited time here. We've got this back and forth that seems to have taken place between Todd Watkins, he's the vice chair of El Paso, and Congressman Ken Buck. It began with a letter that was circulated from Todd talking about, hey, we need our congressional delegation to show up and fight for these January 6th detainees who are still in jail and all this stuff. Then Congressman Buck from the 4th came back and said, I want to disabuse you of this notion that all these things are happening. And he went paragraph by paragraph, and he cited a bunch of sources, including a bunch of media outlets. And now recently, and by recently, I mean, I think it was yesterday or Saturday, forgive me, Dave, that you guys sent out that responsive letter as well. It's strong. I mean, you'd agree with that. It is a strong refutation, and to some extent, a little combative with, I'm not even going to say a little, it's combative with Congressman Ken Buck. And it ends with this statement, and I'm going to read it here. And you and I already texted a little bit about this. For what it's worth, after reading your letter, I believe you are unfit for public office. And I and other grassroots Republicans plan to do what we can to ensure you are never elected again. For a bunch of folks out there that are thinking, man, 2024 is about us winning the presidency back and trying to right this ship and take over the Senate, which isn't an issue here in Colorado. What is your sense of this? By the way, I'm thankful that you send out the information so people can consider it and go back and forth. But how does this end? And is this healthy for us?
Yeah, I thought a good deal about not only the request that Congressman Buck sent me, but also Watkins sent me, and whether or not I should pass it on. And I erred on the side of disclosing everything rather than having it under the surface and kind of bubbling, beneath the surface was, in my estimation, not a good thing. So I was like, let's just get it out there. Let's get it out there and let those two individuals deal with, the fallout, whether it's good or bad, let them deal with it. I think discussion and speech is a healthy thing. It may not be pleasant, but rather than having people kind of build animosity in the background, let's just get it out there. I ultimately think that these discussions, while they may be unpleasant in the moment, they're going to yield a long-term, solution. And ultimately, I think Ken Buck, he's gone through a number of primaries. He'll survive if he really wants to continue on.
Is there going to be a primary in the 4th? Have you heard of anybody who's going to announce?
I think so. Bob, I think it was Bob Lewis, 2022. He
Albert County. Yep.
Yeah, sort of a surprise one. Almost kept him off the ballot. But yeah, I think given that, plus some of Congressman Buck's recent positions, I think there will be. I think State Representative Richard Holtorf is likely to jump in. Obviously, Todd and his compadres are looking at doing the same thing. And at the end of the day, hey, competition is a healthy thing. Instead of ignoring it, let's just embrace it.
Well, and I get that from the standpoint of we are the party of, iron sharpens iron. I get that. I believe in that. But with the limited resources we have, and you're feeling it, man, based on just the fundraising numbers you've mentioned, is this the way to go about victory on a larger scale, is for us to be spending time and effort tearing each other down, trying to get, I don't know, whoever the right candidate is. Again, I'm not opposed to competition. I think that's what we're based on. But is that the right approach in this limited resource environment?
Well, from the state party standpoint, we would rather focus on Democrats. And we're trying to really target these Democrats. But there's just some of these things that are going to be unavoidable. And, it's something that we're willing to confront head on if we need to, and we'll make sure that the rules are in place so that everyone gets a fair shot at making their case to the voters.
And I texted you about this, but I don't know the bylaws in El Paso County, but is it permissible for a vice chair of a GOP party to take up arms against an incumbent Republican in office? And by the way, they're not even in the same congressional district, Todd and Buck, but is that permissible?
Well, generally they need to, not support or oppose or endorse, anyone in a contested primary. The reading of his letter, it would look like he's potentially in non-compliance with his own county bylaws. But again, as I said earlier, that's for him to figure out. That's why I felt like, look, these are big boys. They can suffer the consequences, good or bad, for what they're saying.
Most problematic positions that you've heard people talk about with regards to their support for Congressman Buck moving forward. You said there were a few things positions he'd taken. What have you heard?
Well, I can tell you what I've been receiving from voters who just send us emails. I think there's a concern over his stance on the impeachment with respect to Joe Biden. I think the January 6th defendants, detainee issue is certainly something that people are looking at and complaining about. I think earlier, prior to when I was chair, there were some things they was talking about with respect to Congresswoman Omar, kind of defending her a little bit. But I also understand that Congressman Buck is a very thoughtful, deliberate guy, and there's a lot of nuance that I think people need to account for. So often these issues are not black and white. And so I would encourage people to really do their research and even call up Congressman Buck so that you can get the full story. None of these things are easy or simple. They're not black and white.
Dave Willaims, chair for the GOP. If you wanted to, man, I'd give you the opportunity here to pitch this Capitol Club lunch with this cool kid from down in the Springs, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, you bet. We have Jaden Rodriguez. His mom and him are going to come down on October 7th to Colorado Springs. We're doing a one-time change. Normally we have this in the Denver Tech Center, but we wanted to accommodate Jaden. So in Colorado Springs on October 7th at Biaggi's Italian Restaurant, he's going to come and be our featured guest, and we encourage everyone to come and support him and hear him out. He's a cool kid. He stood up to an administration that made a big mistake on what the Gadsden flag means.
Oh boy, ridiculous!
Don't tread on me has nothing to do with slavery. In fact, it's quite the contrary. It has everything to do with freedom. So, Google him and research more about him. But please come out and hear him talk. He'd love to see you guys.
What's the best way to get information on that?
You bet. Go to the website and sign up for our emails. We're going to be sending this out for the rest of the month. But cologop.org. Just sign up and you'll be able to get all the details.
Dave Willaims, he's the chair of the state GOP. My hope is we can get you on either right before or after this September 30th meeting to keep this conversation going. Always generous with your time, man. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, George.
Take care. Hey, listen, we're going to cut away for a break. We still have Frank on line. We had full lines. I want to keep this conversation going. This is that dovetailed part of it when we talked about the Jenna Ellis thing, and I'll reset that when we come back. But this letter from Todd Watkins, and you should know I reached out to Todd just this morning, by the way, to see if he could come on. If it's not today, hopefully it's tomorrow or Wednesday. We'd love to get him on to have this conversation. Before I cut away for a break, and I know I need to, Billy, I know it. I got to tell you, though, about something special that's going on out in the community, and it has nothing to do with the government. In fact, deliberately has nothing to do with the government. And that's our friends at Step Denver. These are the guys that I've been talking about now forever. And before me, Pete, before that, and I mean decades going back. Step Denver is that organization right there in Denver that is helping to save lives by giving men a safe, sober, and structured environment to rebuild their lives. Because I'm telling you, man, this drug stuff is what leads to this homelessness. I don't think people become homeless and then get into the drugs. It always seems like the drugs ends up being that precursor to it. And this is an organization that says, federal government, state government, you don't know what you're doing when it comes to saving lives. We do. And I've been out there multiple times. We do a show, I think, out there every year, a fundraiser for them. And you guys have been great about it. Keep in mind, because they don't take tax dollars. They don't take our money that way. they need donations, they need contributions. And the easiest way to do it is to give them that truck, that car, that other vehicle that they can then clean up, fix up. They'll sell it for as much as you can ever possibly imagine. You get the tax benefit, they get the ability. Every vehicle is a man in this program. It's a multi-year program. When's the last time you were able to do something with your vehicle to give it away that would save a life? When's the last time you were able to just save a life? This is how you do it. 303-296-9020. That's for the hassle-free tow and everything. 303-296-9020. Or visit stepdenver.org. That's stepdenver.org. I still need to get my title. I got to find the title for this Chevy Traverse that I'm going to donate to them. And then Billy and I are going to make a bit of a production about it. I just want to show you how easy it is. I'm invested in this organization. You ought to be too. Hey, our phone lines are open except for Frank. And Frank, you're going to go next, man. 303-696-1971. George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Thanks to Dave Willaims. He's the state party chair for the Republican Party. I'm a member. Good to have that conversation. Had to race through a whole bunch of topics, but I thought Dave did a good job of setting the stage. The most interesting one from my standpoint is this proposed rule change. It sounded a little muted in terms of, oh, not that big a deal. Here's what we're trying. But folks, the takeaways there for me were we're still not done trying to wrestle the candidate selection process, nominee selection process away from the state system. I get that. But we're going to do what we can to manipulate the vote here at the state. And manipulate may have a negative connotation, but that's truly what's happening, right? I mean, I don't mean a judgment by it, but they're trying to manipulate who gets counted as a vote and how abstentions are counted. And I have the same problem. If someone abstains and says, I'm not going one way or the other, why in the world would you then count them as with the majority? It just doesn't sound like America to me. But the problem is the way it's characterized is, well, then it's counted as a negative. It's not. The way the law reads is you have to have X percentage of in favor votes. So it's not counted as a negative. It's just not counted as an in favor. Practical consequence may be the same, but that's very, very different. Nonetheless, the other parts of this were, I'm intrigued that if the party is successful in withdrawing from the primary, the two options are we're just going to have the assemblies do all the nominating and we're going to cut off a jillion other Republicans in the state who would otherwise participate in that process, or we're going to go to electronic voting. Think about that. In this day and age, with the consequences of hacking and all the other things that go on, the fraud that takes place, the risk, I mean, my God, we have gone hammer and tong after even the computer systems because they were accessible to outside influences that could put viruses or bugs or change votes. We're going to go to an electronic system. I'm fascinated. It's not that I'm opposed. I'm just interested to know what are the guarantees that it's going to be accurate. How do we know that it can't be manipulated? I mean, these are all big questions, but nonetheless, we'll get Dave on again as this thing progresses, hopefully before the meeting on the 30th. I don't know if we can do that, Billy, or not, but otherwise afterwards, big thing coming up. 303-696-1971. Ended by talking about the Watkins letter and the back and forth. And, you know, we talked about Jenna Ellis and her revelation that I want to get to Frank about, but you know, she had Steve Deace on her show, and Steve had basically, and who was a huge Trump guy, huge stolen election guy, looks like he's backed off of both of those. And based on comments he made, this is how Jenna finished one segment of her show.
You know, really incredibly well said, Steve. And I think that you perfectly articulated exactly how I, as a voter, feel and you know, and I know him well as a friend, as a former boss. I have great love and respect for him personally, but everything that you just said resonates with me as exactly why I simply can't support him for elected office again. Why I have chosen to distance is because of that, frankly, malignant, narcissistic tendency to simply say that he's never done anything wrong, and the total idolatry that I'm seeing from some of the supporters that are unwilling to put the Constitution and the country and the conservative principles above their love for a star is really troubling. And I think that we do need to, as Americans and as conservatives, and particularly as Christians, take this very seriously and understand where are we putting our vote. Thank you so much, Steve Deace. We'll be right back with more.
Frank from Golden, you're on 710. What are your thoughts, Frank?
Well, I don't. I guess the fundamental question is: do we think that a cult member can self-deprogram, and is that what we're witnessing with Jenna Ellis? And maybe the answer is yes, a little bit, although she's still professed an awful lot of love for the Trump cult. But I ask you this kind of as a rhetorical question, is that do we think that Jenna Ellis would be taking this position if Trump had volunteered to financially support her defense in Georgia? And my answer is no. I think that Jenna Ellis would not have somehow found out that Trump is a malignant narcissist if he was funding the defense. And so I don't believe in the self-deprogramming, no. You know,
I think, Frank, I'll say this too. I don't know anybody that would, right? Like, I don't know anybody that would bite the hand that feeds it. So if you were caught in a tough spot and someone showed up to fund that defense, you'd be a moron to go out there and then crap talk the person paying for your defense. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't, you know, I do wonder if this is maybe a little bit of a tip of the iceberg of the evangelical support eroding for Trump, because at some point, you know, the evangelicals have got to realize that, like, look, man, you've literally and figuratively prostituted yourself for a guy who is a former abortion supporting Democrat who's declared bankruptcy multiple times, who is a twice divorced philanderer. I mean, at some point, if you're an evangelical, don't you kind of say, man, I don't know if this leopard has truly changed his spot?
I can see Christians in general saying, listen, whatever your past misconduct was, we're all capable of making mistakes, and we're all capable of forgiving people who make mistakes. But it requires that piece that Jenna and Steve Day say is missing, and that is, you got to acknowledge you made the mistake, and you got to pledge to not do it again, even if you end up falling down again. The whole purpose of redemption is not just you get blindly forgiven just because. You got to admit you did wrong, right? And that's the part where this guy, in my mind, I don't know a single time he has ever said, this was a mistake I made, ever.
You took the words right out of my mouth. He's never, ever said that. He's never admitted to anything. I mean, I just don't, you know, through this conversation, I mean, we've learned that he's also, you know, been a legislator who's legislated animal protection, and he's our narcissist or this and that. Look, he's never done anything that isn't entirely self-interested. He has never given of himself ever. I mean, I mean, point me to the example. He's literally gone through life stiffing contractors and daring people to sue him.
Frank,
that's what he's done.
Given all that too, though, and again, I've said this on the radio. What do you do with your vote? What do you do with your vote if this becomes
Biden
part two? Yeah, I know.
You know, I've said that, you know, it's scary that Trump would be the nominee because, you know, he lost to an empty suit and Joe Biden, but now the polls seem to be pulling a little bit more in Trump's favor. What I think is going to end up, I don't think Biden's going to be the nominee for the Democrats. And I think that if you do run just literally another empty suit, I think they beat Trump. But if it comes down to that, and I'm unaffiliated, you guys know that, everything like that, I'm just going to abstain, which I guess now in the Republican Party is a vote for.
It's a vote with the majority.
Right, which is insane in and of itself. But no, I don't know. I mean, I have to get close enough to the point in time when that's the binary choice and listen to people and hear things. And if there is an active contrition inside the Trump hide, I suppose I could take that into consideration too.
Yeah,
I don't
think
see
that's
that
coming.
happening.
I don't either.
No,
I don't either. Frank, thanks as always, man, for the phone call and the conversation. We're up against a break here. Frank's line is open at 303-696-1971. Other Frank from Evergreen in Maryland, and whoever is going to call in on Frank from Golden's line, I promise that we're going to get to you over the course of this conversation because it's an important one. And dang it, I should have asked Frank about the Watkins letter as well. I'm interested in your thoughts on it. I will, after the top of the hour, I'll set the stage for some of that to read you some of the pieces from it. I really do want to get Todd on because I think nobody's going to be a better defender of this letter than the guy who authored it. Got to tell you, though, about the defender of your home, and that is the home you're in now and maybe the home you want to get into. That's Gay Ribble with Empower Home Team. You know, you heard Amy from Alpine Planning in the last hour talk about how we're in very interesting times where the Fed's going to hold interest rates steady until October, and then she expects them to go up. Well, folks, that means you're going to pay more for that mortgage if you wait until the Fed meets in October. Now may be the perfect time for you to strike in buying that new home and getting out of your current home. The best way to do that is to go visit our friends at Empower Home Team, Keller Williams. And Gay Ribble, and she's the captain of that ship and the captain of that team. I will tell you that they've been doing this forever. As I've told you, decades, Gay's been in this business. The statistics, yeah, they're real. They sell for more, about $30,000 more per home than other realtors. They certainly sell a higher volume of homes than other realtors. And they also sell more quickly on average than other realtors. And they will make you a guarantee you just can't get anywhere else. And that's to sell your home for the right time at the right price, or they make it right with money. All you have to do to avail yourself of their 14,600 buyers in waiting. That's 14,600 people. It's probably more now waiting to make a bid on your home once it gets listed, is to call her at 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD, or visit gayhasthebuyers.com. That's gay, G-A-Y-E, hasthebuyers.com. When we come back, Frank, Marilyn, some text here too. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, going right to the phone lines. Frank from Evergreen, you're on 710. Frank, what do you think?
Hey, first of all, George, you can call me Frank Prime after the other Frank was on earlier. So I'm confused though. Is bankruptcy illegal now or something?
Oh no, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, it just sounds like you found something else trumped it up that was illegal. And another thing is changing your mind illegal too.
No.
You change your mind, is that illegal?
No, I don't think so. It depends, I guess, on what you're changing your mind about.
Those are the points that Frank Jr. was bringing up, was that he filed bankruptcy and he changed his mind. Gosh, imagine that, you know?
Well, I missed the part about him changing his mind. The bankruptcy thing, I think we all
changed
get.
His mind about abortion.
No, I get that stuff, man. But how about this? Is it wrong for
anything to beat the guy up?
I don't think so. I just think it's one thing.
It sounds like it to me.
It is one thing to be a person who has, and you're a pro-life guy. I know that from you, man, from all your calls. You're very pro-life. Were you ever pro-choice?
I don't agree with crushing the head of a baby as it exits the womb.
Have you ever agreed with that?
To be honest with you, I was pretty ignorant of all that at one point in my life. I didn't even think about it. The concept of agreeing with it, I can't say I agreed with it because I really was never aware of it.
Okay, but can you see how in your position, there was never a time where you were like, I am supportive of someone's ability to crush a baby's skull and do all this other stuff. You can see
I can't imagine anybody thinking that. Anybody.
Yeah, and yet
not even 5%. Like
I understand, but I'm suggesting to you that those folks who were pro-choice before, couldn't they be asked those questions? Like, how could you have supported that in the past?
Well, people change their mind. They get smarter, believe it or not. You know, I mean,
is that all that you think it is? What about Jenna Ellis changing her mind, by the way?
Jenna Ellis is one of the finest people on the planet, George. And I'm sure you must know that. She's also an incredibly intelligent woman. You know, she teaches at, CCU.
She did. I don't know if she still does. She did.
Yeah. You must know her. I mean, I'm sure you must have
real quick before we finish up though. Do you agree with her when she says, I can't support Trump because of this malignant narcissistic tendency?
It's her opinion, you know,
but you disagree with it.
For me or for her? I agree with her opinion.
No. Do you disagree with her conclusion?
I want a president. I'm not looking for somebody to trade spit with for a president. I'm looking for a president that's going to do something.
Well,
and
you've got one who has right now, but he's doing all the wrong things. And Frank, forgive me, man. You can hear that music. I got to punch out. Marilyn, I'll get to you. Frank's line is open, 303-696-1970. We're going to keep this going here. And the Watkins letter when we return. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Do not rise above your own worldview. This would require something of Donald Trump his entire life that he has evaded. And in his mind, successfully, whether it's with failed marriages or businesses, he has avoided repentance. The accountability of bowing the knee. I screwed up. I'm not what the people are waiting for. I don't tiptoe between the raindrops. I'm not sinless. All right. I need the Lord in my life, the only sinless one. He won't do it.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Now, when I take, when we go in church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness. And I do that as often as possible.
I simply can't support him for elected office again. I have chosen to distance is because of that, frankly, malignant narcissistic tendency to simply say that he's never done anything wrong, and the total idolatry that I'm seeing from some of the supporters that are unwilling to put the Constitution and the country and the conservative principles above their love for a star.
That was Steve Deace and Jenna Ellis bookending the Donald Trump quote there, or clip, from just this past Thursday on Jenna Ellis's show on American Family Network. And they were talking about their inability to support this guy. Jenna really, I don't know that Deace said it, but he did express some serious concerns. And then in between was a clip that Billy found from 2016, where Trump was asked, as you heard, straight up, like, have you ever asked for forgiveness from God? And his answer was, no, I just try to do better. I don't ever admit I did anything wrong and ask for forgiveness. Turns out God's not the only one who gets that treatment. We do too. The question is, do you think differently of Jenna as a result of this? We had Ron earlier in the show calling and say, I think somebody got to her. It's like, well, who is that? Why couldn't she just simply, much like Frank from Evergreen said at the last hour, Trump just changed his mind. He used to be in favor of killing babies, and then he changed his mind on killing babies. Does that apply to Jenna Ellis? And he said, hey, look, I think that's her opinion. And I'm like, no, man, he wouldn't get to it. Do you agree? And then we had Brian from Arvada, our friend, who says, yeah, he's absolutely narcissistic, but he's our narcissist. And I thought that was a very telling and probably accurate comment too. And that is, he's our guy. It was what Billy called the Bill Romanowski rule. Yeah, he's a thug, but he's our thug. So then we have that. And then we have this letter from Todd Watkins that was penned and distributed, I believe, on Saturday, September the 16th to Representative Ken Buck. And it's going back and forth. I don't expect Ken to respond again, but if he does, we'd love to have him back on the radio to talk about it. But it's about a 2.5-page letter. I don't know if it's posted online, but it's definitely on the GOP distribution list for emails. And thank you, Todd, by the way, for referencing the fact that our show was part of this thing. He said, your recent appearance on the George Brauchler Show on 710 KNUS was also very enlightening, if not disappointing. He goes on to take issue with what Ken said and disagree with it, not through the presentation of any other facts, or even alleged facts, if that's the terminology we're now forced to adopt so that people can disagree with the facts, but referencing Julie Kelly at the Federalist. And I pulled up that letter and I'm going through it right now. And I asked Billy, and Billy tried this last week too. We're trying to get her on the show, folks. I mean, again, we tried to get everybody on the show to have the conversation. I reached out to Todd just this morning. I presume dude's very, very busy. We're also going to try to get Julie on because I want to have the conversation with her as well. In the meantime, there are things about this letter that have become increasingly combative with Ken. Not, hey, I disagree with you on this, but he goes through at one point in this third paragraph. He says, hey, listen, I was a Border Patrol agent for 24 years, very honorable service in law enforcement there. And he says, I acknowledge that you have this assistant U.S. attorney thing, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes on to say, this is paragraph 3. I find your lack of knowledge concerning federal and constitutional law unfathomable. I mean, that's a pretty hard hit to take at a dude who has been operating under an oath to uphold and defend it for decades now. But and it seems personal, but then it's this next sentence that is gratuitous and unnecessary. I know that when you were an AUSA for Colorado and chief of the criminal division, you were reprimanded by the Justice Department and required to take ethics classes. I think the Justice Department should have also required, and he left out the word you, should have required you to take remedial federal criminal procedure classes. Again, just gratuitous and personal. It doesn't advance the ball at all, but it gets him into a conversation about what he believes the procedures are as applicable to defendants. And he cites 18 USC 3161. He talks about low-level offenses and indictments after the fact and when a grand jury indictment is needed and all that. He gets to, this is paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this sentence or two finishes it off. The grassroots base of the GOP is fully aware that this is lawfare waged against American citizens in order to demonstrate the might of the federal government and to coerce the American people into abject submission. That's Todd's description of the prosecution of these January the 6th defendants. He says the administration, the executive branch of government that is controlled by a radical Democrat party is bent on silencing Americans and forcing its will upon us. This is hardly equal application of the law and absolutely violative of equal protection under the law. And I'm always a big proponent of throwing in all the adverbs and adjectives possible. I'm kidding. Absolutely violative, as opposed to likely violative or just violative. It is absolutely violative of equal protection. I'd love to know how that's true, and maybe there's a good answer there, but we'll have that conversation. I'm interested to know what he's talking about. Then 2 paragraphs later, when he takes issue with Ken talking about restrictive housing for the safety of these inmates, he said, restrictive housing means they are put into solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, making meetings with their lawyers sometimes an impossibility. You claim the status has been deemed necessary by the DC jail officials and confirmed by U.S. Marshals and federal court personnel. Since when are constitutional rights to legal counsel controlled by jailers? A lot. Your attorney can't just show up at any time whenever they want and simply announce, I'm here to see my client, and the universe stops for them to get them out. There's a lot of circumstances in which the access to your client isn't immediate. It can't just be barred, but it can't be immediate for a whole bunch of reasons. That's kind of a silly comment to make. We don't allow attorneys to just announce, this is what I want done with my client while their client is being held. Now, they should never be denied access to counsel, but access is going to have to be defined. Does it mean right then when they demand? That's just not how it's ever going to work. Can you imagine a jail where anytime an attorney shows up, the whole world stops so that they can quickly usher them to go see their client, regardless of what's going on? I mean, that's just not the planet Earth, man. It's certainly not America. And then he goes on to say, in one of the final paragraphs, as for your numerous statements concerning how the January 6 prisoners were not abused medically or otherwise, I direct you to the public letter by Julie Kelly that fully refutes your various outrageous claims. I'm going through that letter now. I don't have it all read yet, but I'm going to do that. And like I said, I want to get Julie on the radio so that we can learn what she knows as well. And then in one of the last things that he says, do you not recognize that every aspect of our government constitutes a crisis because of corrupt administration? Your disconnect with the grassroots base of our party betrays your elitist worldview and arrogantly assumes that we are incapable of recognizing the fighting, the multitude of failings and abuses committed by our government. Listen, man, whatever you want to say about Ken and whether you think he's changed or not, just remember, this dude was Tea Party back before Tea Party was cool. That's how he ended up getting ushered in to office. But more than that, elitist? Dude was a local prosecutor who produced 2 great kids, a wife who, now ex-wife, who served in the legislature as a hardcore conservative. Son went on to West Point to serve his country in uniform, and Ken Buck is an elitist? I don't get it, man. And the point is, if you're going to refute his positions, and I'll ask Todd this if he calls in, Great, man. I understand. Let's refute them. Let's talk about facts. But to do the gratuitous attacks and labeling, that's them. That's the lefties. Remember the Saul Alinsky stuff? Label them, malign them, stick them out on a branch somewhere where they can be ignored. That's what you do with this kind of unhelpful language. It says, with your opposition to Donald Trump and his supporters, as outlined in your letter, I would imagine you are on your way to becoming the Liz Cheney of Colorado. For what it's worth, after reading your letter, I believe you are unfit for public office. Not, I disagree with you and I don't want your positions advanced in Congress, but you are unfit for public office. And this is coming from a guy who doesn't even live in Ken's district. And I and other grassroots Republicans plan to do what we can to ensure you are never elected again. That's where we're at, folks, as the Republican Party. Are we focused on the Dems? That doesn't sound like it.
And George, remember that inside of that letter, part of the proof, again, while Buck supplies footnotes, there are no footnotes in this response that holds up any of it. Two, they hold out AP as far left, which again doesn't express an understanding of the continuum of information that exists in our world. You may not like the AP, but saying they are far left is not accurate. The other thing is he cites Julie Kelly's letter, said that she obviously takes him down. In Kelly's third sentence, she makes a statement that is opposite of what the real facts are. She talks about members of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers being found guilty related to January 6th for no serious crime. They were held guilty of seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
They went to trial. Those are big ones. If you don't think that seditious conspiracy is a serious crime, we need to have a larger conversation about your impression of law, order, and the Constitution.
Yeah.
These Proud Boys and these Oath Keepers were found guilty of planning and preparing to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power on January 6th. That's what they were convicted of. Yet in the third sentence in her response, Miss Kelly says that is not a serious crime. She goes on to make other bass-backwards, unsubstantiated conclusions, but that should give us a little bit of pause when in the third sentence she says something that is obviously not true on its face.
Well, I'd love to get Julie on to have the conversation. There may be things that she takes issue with in our characterization of her words. I'd love to just have her do some of the defense of that. But in the meantime, let's get to the phone lines, 303-696-1971. It's Marilyn from Denver. Marilyn, how are you? What do you think?
Oh, boy, I'm thinking a whole lot. I've never called your show. I've never really listened to you before.
Well, hold on. What got you to listen today?
I think the lack of response that you gave to that gentleman that was ripping Trump for being divorced. That's not against the law. The bankruptcy, not against the law. He didn't name anything that Trump did while he was in office. And I'm really surprised that you didn't go, hey, you know, the guy did do the Abraham Accords with peace. He did not start any wars. He did continue drilling and more drilling so that we would pay $1.70 instead of $4 for gas. He did build a rapport with the Black and Hispanic communities for a workforce for what was it called? I can't remember what it was called. There was so much that this man did do, and of course the one that hits home to me and probably many, many other people, the people that are dying, they got the right to try drugs that were illegal according to our government. He said, no way. Let these people try. They're dying. They're going on their way out. Let them try drugs. Big, huge impact. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and yours over there, and I'm thinking, you're defending Buck when Buck has gone and bucked up against his constituents to the point that they are so upset because January 6th was infiltrated completely and not handled by the Capitol Police, i.e. Pelosi. They wanted that meltdown. I listened to Trump the whole time he was talking. I wish he would have shut up.
What do you mean infiltrated?
infiltrated with people like Ray Epps. You heard the name, right? You had to hear the name.
Of course,
Ray Epps.
but tell me what you mean by Ray Epps ran the show there? Ray Epps, first of all,
Ray Epps.
There's
Ray Epps.
been no
Hold on,
proof
let me
that
finish.
Ray Epps is part of anything. I mean, that's been made pretty clear. He's the one suing a bunch of the people that have made allegations like this.
Of course they will. Of course he will. And he'll get lawyers.
But what's the proof of the infiltration?
The proof of the infiltration is watching the film, and I would take that you would want to watch it. They moved the gates out of the way. They moved the barriers out of the way. They let those people walk in like they were doing a tour of D.C.
Is that what you think those people thought? Those people thought they were on a tour?
Don't be so funny.
I'm not being funny. I'm asking you. Do you think that that's what they thought they were doing when they were in the Capitol?
They moved the gates for those people that were standing there, and they were saying, come on in. They opened the doors. The Capitol Police opened the doors. How do you think those people got in there? You know D.C.
Yeah, we did watch them break through some windows, Marilyn. What do you say about the ones who broke through the windows?
Well, one of them's dead.
Yeah, I understand. But what do you say about those that were trying to break in the windows? Or the ones, I'm sure you've seen this too, where the Capitol Police or whoever it is, they're trying to close that gate down, inside. And these dudes are running up using chairs to stop it from going down. Cops are so freaked out, they flee and then they pull up. What do you say about those folks? What tour were they on?
You know what I say about those folks is, and I include the infiltration with the Proud Boys. I don't trust the Proud Boys at all. Yeah. I don't know enough. All I know is that what they did that day instigated even more problems. The thing is, Trump didn't say anything other than go and be peaceful. Go and be peaceful and let the people in that building know.
That is what he said at the very end after saying fight like half a dozen or 20 times or something like that.
No, I listened to his whole speech before he left the podium. That's exactly what he said.
I understand.
But more importantly, bringing it back to Colorado and you.
What about me?
Picking up for a buck. Oh, yeah. I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you not state that the January 6th, they've got people in the basement of the Capitol in those jails for close going on 4 years.
What are you talking about? Where is your evidence of that? Just like they just threw people in a hole. Not, oh my God, where's your evidence?
Jail. It's the Capitol Police has a jail there. And there are people still, listen to the families. What about the 19-year-old kid, Utah?
Why are they in jail? Why are they in jail?
Because the government is pressing the foot on the pedal of anybody that does anything that, why isn't BLM in jail? Why isn't Antifa? BML just got $6 million from Colorado.
BLM folks have been arrested and jailed all over the country. Maybe not to the extent that I or you, Marilyn.
They're not having a chance to even fight for themselves.
How do you know that, Marilyn? How do you know that?
Because there are family members trying to reach their family members down there. You don't know this?
You don't know this. You're just saying, you're repeating stuff that you've heard somewhere. Where's your, just shoot me the links, man. Shoot me the links to all of this evidence.
You know what? I'll do that. And I'll shoot you the link of the 19-year-old kid from Utah that just hung himself because the FBI came after him because it's screenshot of a face because he was there, just standing in the crowd. There are people that commit
So they're on the hook for this kid killing himself?
Of course.
They're responsible for him making that decision.
Let's get back to Jenna before I go. Jenna,
yeah.
When in the world did it click in her head that Trump was a narcissist, malignant narcissist? I knew that when in the 2000s. I knew that when he was walking the streets of New York as just a businessman.
Uh-huh.
Of course that guy is narcissist. But why would he have to pay for her? Why would he have to pay for her?
Who said he has to pay for her?
Pay for her legal fees.
Who said that? Who said he has to?
Because she wanted him. She wanted him to pay for her legal fees. She wanted that.
Okay, I'm sure she asked for help, but what's that have to do with this? The Steve Deace comments and the Jenna Ellis comments.
Well, you know what? She's being attacked by the government. She is being literally drained, just like all those other lawyers that were supporting Trump. They're financially being drained of every drop of dollars that they have by the government. If you cannot see that, then Brauchler, it was good that this is the only phone call and the only time that I will have ever listened to you.
Well, Marilyn, thank you for the open mind. I thank you for being a first-time listener and first-time caller. I appreciate that. I'm not sure that's how America works, where you say, hey, if you don't agree with me or see the world I do, I'm just going to cut you off. That feels like the cancel culture of the other side, but it sounds like that's the direction you'd like to go. Oh, and Marilyn hung up. Marilyn, come on. Have the guts to stay on and have the conversation. I get it. Abraham Accords, not a bad thing. Not a life-changing thing. And it was the UAE and Bahrain. Important, but not Saudi Arabia, right? Like none of the big countries like that. But nonetheless, here's someone. You are, this is another one of these thoughtful texters. You are a effing liar, you POS, but they actually spell it out. Denver and other cities have actually paid the people that got arrested during the riots. BLM and Antifa has never been held accountable. Listen, I'm not going to defend Denver and how they handled this, but this suggestion that every single person that engaged in any of those BLM riots walked away without consequences is just fake. And if you need to believe that for your narrative on what's going on in the world, go ahead. But it doesn't make me a liar. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, come on. The last hour, we had someone call in here and talk about how they burnt the Minneapolis Police Department down, and they lit that on fire.
And someone else texted in and said, turned out that dude was a right winger.
And the issue is, dude went there and lit the thing on fire and is now serving 4 years in prison and has to pay $12 million in restitution. So the idea that these people have not been held accountable, it may not be to your liking, but the idea that they haven't been held to account is not necessarily
I also
correct.
appreciate that there are people that have been held in the jail under the Capitol for 4 years, which is crack smoke crazy because January 6th was less than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But what do I know? It's just simple math. Maryland. Here's another one. I stepped down as district captain because of the grassroots Republican movement. They are divisive and do not want to listen to other viewpoints. My God, Maryland hits that right on the head. While the mainstream tries its best to work with all, it is clear that to them, if you disagree with the grassroots, you are a RINO. Maryland, my guess is if you'd had the guts to call back in, you would probably agree with that and say that's absolutely right. In fact, I'd love to get Maryland's definition of a RINO. So far, remember that day we did that. We said, please define RINO without referencing Trump. Ain't nobody could do it. Nobody could do it. And the problem is if you start listing off conservative principles, pretty quickly you realize that's not Donald Trump. That's somebody else.
Yeah.
Here's another. All I hear from Trump cultists is a bunch of screeching, whining, and crying. They sound like a bunch of libs. Our buddy Joan, thank you for listening to Maryland without list Trump without interruption or something like that.
But it would be nice if Maryland would have had the facts, because she called in to talk about all the people that have been held without bond. Not true based on the timeline, but also ignoring the fact that information has been provided that the people that have been held without bond are ones that have been deemed violent.
Yeah.
And they had a court case in order to justify that. They actually had to go to court and say, listen, judge, we want to hold these people without bond because we think there is a propensity for violence after that based on what they did that day. They didn't just sweep up anybody walking through the Capitol and hold them without bond. The other thing that people seem to forget when they call up and they make this argument or this assertion that these people were let into the Capitol and they were wandering around as tourists. Did they not watch what happened on that day with us?
Yeah.
We saw people break through windows, break through doors.
Well, that's the other thing, man.
We saw a police officer crushed between two doors.
I asked Marilyn
yelling and
that,
screaming
and she
for
had
help.
no answer. Don't want to talk about that.
No, she doesn't, because that hurts the narrative. And again, this is just gaslighting. This is just a group of people that are trying to reinvent history. They are trying to tell everybody else that what you watched on January 6th is not correct and wasn't the reality. It's a fake thing like the moon landing. And we actually have the real thing that happened. The other thing that you've got to ask yourself, people like Marilyn, is where is the proof of the FBI and the law enforcement
Because
infiltrators?
Billy, the answer will always be this. If you don't see that,
yeah, exactly.
If you don't believe that, if you don't agree that, if you don't know that, there's
long-
something wrong with you.
How long has Tucker had that video footage? And he's never once been able
He's
to
saving
come
it for an
forward.
explosive
He's
revelation
never
on
once
X.
come forward to show the long list of
It's coming.
agitators
It's
from
coming.
the law enforcement,
It's
FBI,
coming,
CEI, anybody else. CIA. We don't have that. That's it.
Listen, let me tell you something else we don't have, and that is the time for me to adequately move on past this without telling you about Mitch Floria and the art of granite. Mitch is the bomb, the good kind, the kind where if you need to upgrade the countertops or even just thinking about it, like what are my options for that countertop in your kitchen or your bathroom? There's only one place to go. It's Mitch Floria with the art of granite. Don't be fooled by the name. And it's a little deceiving because it's not just the art of granite. If he could, I imagine he just said it's the art of granite and marble and quartz and all the other stuff that you can make a countertop out of. But unfortunately, he was limited to just those 4 words, theartofgranite.com. Check him out. Here's the deal. Good businessman. He's passing on the wholesale prices to you, but he'll do you one better if you say, I'm a George listener, I'm a 710 listener. He'll give you that bathroom countertop with the kitchen countertop package. Just give it to you for free. If you're only doing one room, maybe it's that finished basement, maybe it's that kitchen, the bathroom, whatever it is, he'll throw in the sink for free with the rest of the package. All you have to do is call him at 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. That's Mitch Floria at the Art of Granite. When we come back, we'll get to any calls on the open lines at 303-696-1971. A lot of text superstars here. We'll get to some of those as well. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Why should you buy your next vehicle at Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram? We make car shopping easy. We have a huge inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles. We can even custom order. We make it easy. Easy financing, friendly staff. And when it comes to quality service, our expert technicians keep your vehicle in top shape. Visit us today off of Highway 25 and Plum Creek, or shop online at castlerockcdjr.com. Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Car shopping made easy.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Phone lines filling up. Chad, I'll get to you in just a second here. Got to tell you about superstar, a guy named Dan Caplis. Dan, I had texted Dan, by the way, over the weekend to see if he was coming to that CU game that I talked about in the 6 o'clock hour that I went to with my boys. And Dan had revealed, and this must be out there in the public somewhere else because Alexa told me this as well. He'd unexpectedly lost his sister, just a huge tragedy. And so, of course, he was up taking care of family and stuff in Chicago. And I just have to tell you, I mean, I told him, I don't know what I know what it's like to lose a parent. I don't know what it's like to lose a sibling. And I just, that kind of thing, I just want to say I'm so sorry for the loss, even though I'm not sure Dan would be listening right now, but just really sorry for the loss. But you look for a quality guy, a guy who's invested in family. Nobody is as invested publicly in his family as Dan, and privately too. I mean, this guy, he's all about trying to figure out a way for people to live their best lives. And when you have been victimized by somebody's negligence, their recklessness, their intentional conduct in some cases, you don't know what to do. Your life may be forever changed. Don't navigate those treacherous waters alone. Reach out to Dan and Barbara Wahid, his partner at the Dan Caplis Law Firm, and get the help that you deserve. Get a champion in there to try to right the ship for you and help you live your best life as best you can after something like that. Give them a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or check them out at dancaplislaw.com. Caplis is spelled with a C. Aplis, dancaplislaw.com. Going right to the phone lines. Chad from Denver, you're on 710. What do you think, Chad?
Morning, guys. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, just listening to a fine radio program. Yeah, I know I only have one point to make. I do believe what people are trying to point out is the double standard. Bet you're that, you know, the Biden administration was going to make an example out of people that disagree with them, and the left has made such a example after example of doing that, and I think that's what the callers were pointing out.
When you talk about that double standard, and I'm certainly convinced that there's a double standard when it comes to the elite, the politically elite, and the powerful versus you and I. What standard are you looking at? Chad, did we lose you?
No, I'm here. Those judges, they were going to make an example out of those guys. Now, I'm not saying what they did, the January 6th people, if they were caught on camera breaking a window, well, one's got to be accountable for what they do. But they were going to, they were going to make an example out of them.
Well, and should they not have? Like, what sentence should these guys that went to trial and lost with juries they helped pick, what should happen to them?
Well, you should be held accountable. Saying that, that if you got caught, messing up, you're going to have to pay the fiddler. But they were going to get the heavy end of the book.
And you would object to that? And you object to that? Like, should they have just gotten probation? Like, hey, I know you got convicted of seditious conspiracy, but I hope you've learned your lesson. Go home.
No, I'm not saying there was anything wrong with that. But the left has a, like when Obama got caught, sending the IRS after people that didn't agree with him politically, his last term in office. I mean, and there's been example after, I'm not saying that, you're going to have to be responsible for your actions, but the left is notorious. And I mean, those guys, that's just when those are the games you play, that's the prizes you win.
So what's the answer here? And when you listen to Jenna Ellis talk about, hey, I can't support Trump again because of the malignant narcissistic tendency, I think is the word she used. And then you hear this letter from Todd Watkins, vice chair of the party down in El Paso, coming after Trump, and we're going to see that you're defeated. You're never elected again. What's your takeaway from what's going on with the Republican Party?
I think people that talk like that, they've never been in business for themselves. I mean, no one is a perfect person. God didn't make anybody perfect. Is Trump rough around the edges? Yes. But was the country in a lot better shape when he was in? Yes. So I think people like that, I think they live in a false world. They must have enough money that the inflation's not bothering them. And that, it doesn't seem like they have a very
I feel like
good grasp of reality.
It feels to me like, Chad, at least at this state level, we are so wrapped up in tearing ourselves apart and trying to reach some kind of purity in terms of ideology. We're going to manipulate the rules of how to vote for this and change the rules and all that other stuff. We're spending so much time doing that. We've taken our eyes off of the prize, which is to try to win the races that we can win. This seems like a different kind of effort to me. And I know Maryland is freaked out about anybody daring to defend Ken Buck, who was the grassroots, man. Dude was the Tea Party back when the Tea Party was getting going. I don't know what's changed about him other than that he hasn't sang the song that everybody wants. And now we're going to go after him too. And it's crazy.
Well, typically when a Colorado Republican is typically pretty comical. It seems like, Colorado Republicans have always been pretty weak.
You don't like any of the ones we've had? No Bill Armstrong? No.
I'm not. That's just a blanket statement. We're out east, and it seems like as soon as they go, to the Denver, it seems like we're just forgot about.
Well, we're going to have to figure out a way to right the ship. And Chad, I want to thank you for the phone call. Chad's line is open at 303-696-1971. Brian from Arvada, I promise I'm going to get to you. I got to do one quick thing here, and that is to tell you about our friends at QC Kinetix. That's because every time I run, I come on here and complain in the 6 o'clock hour about my knees. It usually hurts for a day or so, and then they get back to normal. But I can tell you, that warranty has run out, or it's running out. I think I have my dad's knees. He had them both scoped, I think, by the time he was my age. So I'm waiting for stuff like that to happen. I really don't want to go under the knife. I'm just not interested in it. You might be in the same boat. Rather than deal with the pain through pills, which I hate the pills, or deal with the cutting you open and the rehab and the downtime and the boot and the crutches and the wheelchair and the whatever, just give yourself a better option. Give yourself the option of in and out regenerative medicine, using you to fix you by calling our friends at QC Kinetix. They're the local medical professionals. Try to stump them, man. Ask them every question you can possibly ask them, and they're going to give you an answer. And when you feel good about it, move forward. Get some relief. 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986. I say again, 303-900-8986, or you can check them out to begin with at qckinetics.com. That's qckinetics.com. Brian from Arvada, you're on 710. What do you think, Brian?
Hey, George, are you guys trying to sell us on that?
Brian, you're breaking up on us, buddy. You're breaking up on us, buddy. You just sound a little choppy. Is there any way you can get to it better?
Let me see here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but it's really kind of staccato almost. It's like breaking up a bit. How about this, Brian? I'm going to put you on hold. We'll cut away for a break, work on your signal, and then we'll bring you back, okay?
Okay.
All right, hang on, Brian. It's such a choppy signal. We'll get back to Brian and everybody else at 303-696-1971. Can't get to all the texts, and there have been a ton. I'll try to read as many as I can once we get done with Brian. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS, going right to the phone lines. Hopefully the signal's better. Brian from Arvada, you're on 710. What do you think, Brian?
Hey, George, is it any better?
Oh, it's so much better, buddy. So much better. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Well, we know there was FBI people there because Christopher A. was asked, if you remember, he had to go before a hearing, and he was asked specifically, did any FBI agents or informants participate in the insurrection at the Capitol, and he would not answer the question.
Well, hang on.
So if there weren't any, he would simply say,
Brian,
no, there weren't.
I'm glad you brought that up, because here's his quote. I will say this notion that somehow the violence at the Capitol on January the 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and agents is ludicrous and is a disservice to our brave, hardworking, dedicated men and women. He also rejected the allegations that Ray Epps was working undercover and said they were demonstrably and already proven to be false. That was what Ray said.
But he was asked specifically if any FBI agent participated or informant participated in the actual insurrection, and he said, I cannot answer that question. That was specifically asked. If you go over the whole thing, you'll see that.
No, but my sense is what he's saying is maybe they had guys there for intel or whatever. That doesn't shock me at all. But he said they had absolutely nothing to do with the violence at the Capitol.
I don't, if you go over it, I think they asked specifically if they did. But anyhow, I'll have to go over it too. But this Ken Buck guy, why does he go on CNN, CSNBC? If he's so confident in himself, he's got time to do that. Come on the local stations there, Ken. Answer some questions. Why is he afraid?
He was on last week.
What day? I missed it.
Well, maybe Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday, right before I had to go do a little bit of military business. He was on with us for an extended period of time. And then I'm sure he'll be on again. And then, just so you know, I reached out to Todd Watkins. I'm hopeful that he comes on as well to have this conversation, but he hasn't run away from anything. Ken was here.
Well, I'm sorry he can't see that the Bidens are just a crime-ridden family.
He has said that.
They got foreign accounts.
He has said that. This isn't about Ken not seeing that. He's said that himself.
Not reaching to impeachment, really?
No, listen, there is a far cry between, hey, I think that this is a horrible administration. And it's another thing to say we've got enough here to impeach based on high crimes and misdemeanors. I mean, I could see why.
It's just an inquiry. He's against the inquiry. Forget the impeachment.
I think that the problem here is a one of standard and what was offered. And remember, this whole thing was going to be given to the House for a vote, and it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
well, he would have voted against it, from what I understand. He's on some letterhead saying that how people should, respond to this as far as the media. He's the first guy on this Democratic letterhead. I mean,
it's not Democrat stuff, man.
Did he take questions from people when he came in, or no?
When he came in, where
was he afraid of people?
When he came
to see you, would he take any calls and ask if he take?
Honestly, I didn't ask
questions,
him for calls because
no,
he's not scared, buddy. Those aren't the options. The option could be, hey, man, I'm busy doing congressional stuff. I'll give you 20 to 25 minutes of my morning. I didn't even ask him if he would take phone calls from people, and I rarely do that. And we usually have to have a guest on for at least a couple segments to get that far because I have my own questions. So, but man, not to malign him further by calling him cowardly. And I see Eric, our friend Eric Manning here, calls him a coward. These things are just unnecessary and frankly, not helpful to the conversation. We can disagree with each other, but this turns into, he must be on the take. Jenna Ellis, somebody must have gotten to Jenna Ellis. All of these things, because we have now carved out a universe where if someone disagrees with you, then they're wrong. They're just wrong. They can't be trusted. They got to be canceled. We got to get rid of them. They're one of them.
So he's from one of the reddest counties, and he thought it would be a good idea to go on CNN, CSNBC. You can find time for them. Now, how many of his supporters do you think are sitting around watching that trash TV, that lying TV every day? None. So he goes on there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess he came on your show. I'll give him credit for that, but I don't hear him that often coming on. And
I think he'll come on again. And Brian, forgive me, man. I have talked my way out of the end of the show here, and I have to do one other thing first. Brian, I always appreciate the call. And man, the signal sounded so much better. So whatever you did, do that again when you call in again. It is less than 1 month before my next trip down to our good friends, Dr. Richter and Snyder, down there at Twin Aspen Dental. In less than 1 month, I will reunite probably with Shiloh. Maybe it'll be a new hygienist. And they're going to take a look under the hood. They're going to check out my teeth, see if I've got any problems that they can head off at the pass. All the good stuff that a good dentist does. But they do so much more. I just hope I don't need it, whether it's the emergency services, the crowns, the dentures, the bridges, all of that other stuff, the Invisalign, they do it all. I just don't need that stuff, but you might. And if you do, you got to reach out to them and check them out at twinaspendentalcenter.com. You can also go down and check them out at Stroh Ranch and Parker Road. So easy to get to, north, south, east, or west. But give them a call. Set up that appointment. Take a break from your current dentist if you're not in love with them. Just try them. You will love these folks. 303-841-7466. 303-841-7466. I've got so many texts. I can't get them all in here. I'll read what I can. George and Billy are defending Buck just like Trump supporters defend Trump. I don't think so. Ken is God. That's so silly. I've never said that. Joan, our friend, this is its own topic. Joan thinks that Lauren Boebert was set up and roofied. I don't know what the evidence of that is, Joan. Maybe that's a topic for tomorrow, but dang, I don't know where that came from. But I know this. I'm thankful to Dave Willaims from the GOP for coming on. We're going to have more conversations like this with you, with me tomorrow. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.